Chapter 233. Unfortunately, you're not qualified to be a hostage. Fang Yen felt that he had been insulted. You can insult me all you want. Fang Yen was often insulted, and it wasn't a big deal to him. But it's not good to kill someone after insulting him, isn't it? Maybe it was because of the deep hatred of Fang Yen for destroying his arm, or maybe the man in black was a cruel and murderous person. He pointed the gun at Fang Yan's head and was about to pull the trigger. "Deagle, you're crazy." The woman in black used her palm to block the muzzle and said, "You can't kill him." Deagle was furious. With red eyes, he roared, "Why can't I kill him? We want someone from the Qin family. This guy is insignificant. His death isn't even within our scope." Fang Yen was very angry. How was he insignificant? As long as he nodded, he would be the son-in-law of the Qin family. Why didn't you treat me well with such an important hostage and blackmail the Qin family for money or other valuable things? How could he just kill him like that? What a waste. He's close to the Qin family. The woman was more sensitive when it came to emotions. Her eyes swept between Fang Yen and Qin Etienne's faces. She said, "It's so late and they're still together. He's desperately protecting Miss Qin. Maybe he's also a big fish." "He's my boyfriend," Qin Etienne said proudly. Fang Yen glanced at Qin Etienne, but didn't expose her white lie. She was trying to save him, to make his identity more important. This mysterious arsenal organization wouldn't do anything to him. The woman in black glanced at Deagle proudly as if to say, "See, I'm right. How can you kill such an important person? You can only maximize your benefits if you stay." "Damn it," Deagle roared angrily. His arm was smashed by a punch. He would be humiliated when he returned to the organization. If he could not kill the culprit, then he would never be able to wash away his shame. He grabbed Fang Yan's collar and pulled Fang Yan's body in front of him. He stared at his annoying face and said word by word, "I will definitely kill you." "I don't doubt it at all," Fang Yan said. "If it weren't for the help of these two kind-hearted ladies, I would have died by now." Shang knew that the two kind ladies Fang Yen was talking about were his partners, Dragonfly and Qin Etienne. He couldn't do anything to Dragonfly because she had a higher rank in the organization and was the executive officer of every mission. However, he didn't mind giving Qin Etienne some threats. He looked at her with an evil smile and said, "Little girl, come back with me. I will treat you well." "You don't have the qualifications to negotiate with me," Qin Etienne said arrogantly. This girl was still thinking of revenge for Fang Yen. Deagle had just put his collector's edition Desert Eagle into his waist, but after hearing Qin Etienne's words, he couldn't help but pull it out. "Deagle." The woman in black frowned. "Don't hurt our guests. You know the consequences of failure." Deagle's face was full of shame and unwillingness, but there was nothing he could do. Qin Etienne was right. He really didn't have the qualifications to negotiate with Qin Etienne. The ones who could negotiate with her were higher-ranking officers in the organization. He was just the lowest-ranking executive officer. Fang Yen and Qin Etienne were kidnapped. They were escorted to the hillside. A black GMC limousine was already waiting by the roadside. It had to be said that this organization was very capable and efficient. The car was running, and the driver was waiting by the door. A tall middle-aged man looked at Fang Yen with bright eyes and said with a fake smile, "I've seen you before." Fang Yen said thoughtfully, "You're the sniper?" "Very few people can escape from my gun," Bat said. "I hope we'll have a chance to fight again. I'm looking forward to blowing your head off with one shot." "Me too." Fang Yen shook his head regretfully. "As you can see, I'm now your captive. I don't know what you want, but if I don't get what you want, I'm sure you'll kill me, right? So, fighting again is just an extravagant hope. A philosopher once said, when you say goodbye, you should be more forceful. One more sentence might be your last sentence, and one more look might be your last look. We'll never meet again." Bat felt that this guy was crazy. "You're not my woman. Why should I be more forceful, say more, or look at you more?" Bat turned around and opened the door of the GMC. She made an inviting gesture and said, "Please." Qin Etienne stepped in first. Fang Yen was in their hands. Even if she was free, there was no way she could resist. Fang Yen followed, and then the woman in black and Deagle came in to escort the car. Bat glanced at Fang Yen again and pulled the door shut from outside. He was the driver. After he got into the driver's seat, the car quickly started and rushed to the foot of Zhang Mountain at an even faster speed. The interior of the GMC had been specially modified. It looked like a prison van used to transport prisoners. The difference was that the car's configuration was dozens or even hundreds of times more comfortable than a prison van. Leather seats, LCD TV, cigar boxes, and a small wine cabinet. Which prison van would have such luxurious treatment? Fang Yen and Qin Etian sat on the left, while the woman in black and Deagle sat opposite. The four of them looked at each other without any expression on their faces. Perhaps it was because she had the bomb remote control, but the woman in black was very relaxed. She said to Deagle, "Bandage your arm." Deagle glared at Fang Yen fiercely, threatening him not to act rashly. Then he opened the fridge and took out a medical kit. He took out some disinfectant from the silver medical kit and disinfected it a second time. After spraying the medicine, he wrapped the broken arm tightly with a sticky gauze. He did it like he was used to it, as if his arm was broken dozens of times a day. There was no sign of pain on his face, as if the arm didn't grow out of his body. Even Fang Yen felt sorry for him. These people were probably like machines, right? Qin Etian looked at the woman in black calmly. He always maintained his pride as a member of the Qin family. He looked at the woman in black and said, "What do you want?" "We're only responsible for bringing you back. As for what you want, it's not up to me to talk to you." The woman in black's answer was very disappointing. They couldn't get any useful information. Qin Etian didn't force it. He just sat there, his mind terrifyingly tough. If other high school students encountered such a scene, with the birdie bomb and the sniper, they would have wet their pants long ago and couldn't even stand up. However, this little girl was completely fine. She looked even calmer than her teacher, Fang Yen. Fang Yen looked into Qin Etian's eyes and asked with concern, "Are you cold?" Qin Etian nodded and said, "Cold." As he spoke, he leaned his body into Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yen rested his chin on his hair, and the two of them maintained an ambiguous and warm position. The woman in black opened her mouth slightly, but in the end, she didn't say anything. Their mission was completed. They just needed to bring these two people back to the organization. Octopus locked Fang Yan's hands. He and Deagle were on guard. She didn't believe that this man could bring them any danger. Besides, he was probably worried that he would hurt Miss Qin, right? If he did anything out of line, they wouldn't hesitate to aim their guns at Qin Etian's head. The mountain road was uneven, so the car was a little bumpy. Qin Etian had experienced such a disaster and done such intense exercise. He was drowsy from the shaking of the car. His eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and he could barely keep them open. Fang Yen also appeared somewhat tired. He closed his eyes and rested. Sleepiness was contagious. Deagle gave the woman in black a look, and she nodded. Deagle was seriously injured and had lost a lot of blood. He also needed to close his eyes and rest for a while. The woman in black, on the other hand, was full of energy. She stared at Fang Yan's shoulder with vigilance. A person's eyes could lie, but the body couldn't. No matter how small a movement he made, it would involve some key parts of his body. He had killed countless people, so these little secrets couldn't be hidden from her. Fang Yan's counterattack was so sudden that no one had expected it. He hit his chest, and Qin Etian fell toward the back of the car. The blood-piercing device had fallen from Fang Yan's hand and was now in Fang Yan's hand. He stabbed the knife toward Deagle's chest. Deagle was anxious, and he threw himself in the direction of Qin Etian. As long as he blocked Qin Etian in front of him, he didn't believe that the kid wouldn't be afraid to hurt him. The car was wide, but it was only the size of a small car. Even with a few people fighting inside, it still seemed very narrow. With just one leap, Deagle was about to hold Qin Etian in his arms. There was a ferocious smile on his face, and his hand had already touched Qin Etian's clothes. Crack! The sound of a knife cutting tofu came. He felt a pain in his chest, and a soft numbness spread all over his body. He looked down and saw that his black shirt had been dyed brown by the blood. On his chest, the sharp blade was dripping with delicate blood. His body had been pierced through. Too fast, Deagle thought. His idea was good, and his method was right. However, in front of Fang Yan's absolute speed, it was childish and laughable. He regretted it. He regretted it so much. If he had shot Fang Yan's head, pierced Fang Yan's heart, and smashed Fang Yan's body into a pulp, he would have done it to the other unimportant people. How could Fang Yan do such a thing? He regretted it so much, and then he really died. He regretted it so much. Chapter 234. The ancients used the phrase, cock crowing and dog stealing, to describe some people who had no talent and only knew unorthodox ways to take advantage of others. Pretending to be a dog to help him get away, imitating a cock to crow to trick people to open the city gate, these skills were very suitable in ancient times, and they were also very popular in modern times. Fang Yan used the method of dog stealing, shrinking his body bones until his whole arm was free from the 8 octopus claws on Ci Shui. In the past, someone could pretend to be a dog and get out of a narrow cat hole, and Fang Yan's bone shrinking ability was far better than that of the predecessors. The most difficult part of the octopus clasp was the palm. It was wide, fat, and tightly locked by 8 octopus claws. Fang Yan simply used his left hand to break the 5 fingers of his right hand one by one, and pinched the 5 fingers into a ball, just like the flour used to fry fried dough sticks. This was a cruel and long process. It was cruel because you had to break your finger bones and recombine them, so that they could make more space for you to unlock. Only in this way, and only in this way could you take these damn claws off your arm. It was long because you needed to be careful not to be found by the 2 people sitting opposite you. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. No matter how unbearable the pain was, you couldn't frown, and your face couldn't show any trace of pain. When you broke the bones, you couldn't show any flaws. After the Ci Shui was taken out, you still couldn't show any flaws. More importantly, when you did all this, you needed some cover. Qin Etienne's body was the best cover. When Fang Yan asked her if she was cold, although she didn't know what Fang Yan was going to do, she knew in her heart that Fang Yan must want to do something. Otherwise, based on her understanding of Fang Yan, he wouldn't take the initiative to care about whether she was cold or not. Qin Etienne said cold, and then took the initiative to lean his body in Fang Yan's arms. Fang Yan needed her help, and she took the initiative to create opportunities for Fang Yan. Faced with such a smart and understanding little girl, Fang Yan's heart almost melted. Therefore, the 2 of them cooperated well and pierced Deagle's heart when he was caught off guard. Fang Yan's attack had killed Shaing. Life and death could be decided in an instant. At the same time that Fang Yan stabbed Desert Eagle to death, the woman in black had already pounced on Fang Yan from behind. Her reaction was not slow. Fang Yan didn't even look at it. He didn't even have time to pull out the Ci Shui in his hand. He punched behind him. The woman in black turned her fist into a palm to block. Bang! Her weak body was sent flying by Fang Yan's punch, which was full of vigor and power, but she did not have enough strength. The woman in black's body hit the wall of the carriage, and then bounced back and rolled to the ground. Fang Yan pounced on the woman in black. He had to kill her in the shortest time possible. These people came from the mysterious Arsenal organization, and they had all kinds of strange biological weapons in their hands. No matter how good their martial arts were, they were afraid of a kitchen knife. Fang Yan's flesh and blood was really afraid of their bombs. Now they were all in the car. A little carelessness would result in the car being destroyed and people dying. This was not what Fang Yan wanted to see. He was afraid of death. The woman in black lay on the ground motionlessly. She quickly took off the electronic watch on her wrist and held it high in the air. This was her attitude, her threat. Fang Yan's pounce stopped. He squatted in front of the woman in black, his sharp eyes staring at every organ on her black face, capturing every subtle expression on her face. Even the slightest movement of her eyelashes would analyze her motive and purpose. If she showed any suspicious movements, Fang Yan would immediately pull out the Ci Shui and jump down through the glass with her in his arms. That way, Qin Etienne would have a chance to survive. Of course, this was based on the fact that the sniper driving in front didn't react so quickly, or his heart wasn't so vicious. The woman in black didn't speak, and Fang Yan didn't speak either. Both of their bodies were tense. One was ready to snatch the electronic watch at any time. The other was careful. As long as Fang Yen moved, he would press the remote control button. The atmosphere was tense and dangerous. Bat, who was driving in front, heard the noise in the carriage and shouted through the heavy door, "Deagle, what happened?" Deagle was dead, so he couldn't answer. Neither Fang Yen nor Bat could answer. Whoever answered first would be discouraged. However, for Bat, no one answered, which was the clearest answer. His eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. All he could do was concentrate on driving. They were now on the mountain road down the mountain. The road was steep, and a little carelessness could lead to death. "Don't move." The woman in black finally spoke. "If you dare to move a finger, I will immediately press the bomb button." Master Yen stretched out a finger and shook it in front of the woman in black. This was a provocation. A naked provocation. "You deserve to die." The woman in black's eyes were cold, and a lot of anger accumulated in her chest. This guy was too shameless. He was humiliating her. She also began to regret. Why didn't she let Deagle shoot him in the head? If he was dead, this wouldn't have happened, right? However, he was kidnapped by the CI Shui. How could he escape unscathed? It seemed that she had too much faith in the power of technology. In the face of a real master, even the most advanced weapons and the most solid Skynet would fail. "Don't say such meaningless words," Fang Yen said. "I can't do it without moving a finger. If my nose is itchy, do you not allow others to scratch it? I promise you that I won't attack you again. Aren't you afraid that I will press the button?" The woman in black's eyes were full of murderous intent. Fang Yen pointed to the CI Shui that was still stuck in Deagle's body and said, "That thing is no longer in my hands." "So what? If I press the button and the bomb explodes, the whole car will be overturned. You and your woman will be corroded by the venom," the woman in black threatened. "Then why haven't you done that yet?" Fang Yen asked. This stupid woman finally broke the bomb's attack range. If she didn't say it, Fang Yen couldn't guess the answer, and he had to be careful with this kind of thing. She must not have thought that her threat would make Fang Yen even more fearless. The woman in black felt that she was stabbed in the chest again. "This bastard son of a bitch, do your parents know that your mouth is so vicious? If you dare to provoke me again, I will press the button and die with you." Fang Yen seemed to be able to see through all her thoughts. He waved his hand and said, "Don't tell me that you have gone through the cruel training of the organization and have long disregarded life and death, or that you are deeply grateful to the organization and are willing to die for the organization. I don't believe such bullshit. If you can live, who would want to die? I guess you don't want to, right? People who risk their lives to kill are also the people who are most afraid of death, because they are afraid that they can't kill others but won't be killed. This is a demon." The woman in black thought in her heart. He understood people's hearts and human nature. Although the bomb button was in his hands, why did it seem like he had the right to speak? The woman in black felt that she was very useless. She was a professional assassin. She took people's money to eliminate disasters and specialized in this kind of business. How could she be more afraid of death than a hostage? "If I fail, I will be worse than death when I return to the organization," the woman in black said. "So, I don't mind dying with you. I know you have such troubles, so I am willing to give you a chance to negotiate," Fang Yen said with a compassionate face, as if he was completely thinking for you. The woman in black took a few glances at his head, but she didn't see any glittering golden circles. "What do you want to talk about?" the woman in black asked. "You can't beat me, right?" Fang Yen said. The woman in black's body was trembling. "Don't force me. If you force me, I will really press it. I will really press it. You are not as good as me in a one-on-one fight. Although you have a remote control in your hand, if you press it, you will blow yourself up at the same time you blow us up. So, there is no difference if this remote control is in your hand or in my hand." Fang Yen analyzed clearly. "What do you want to say?" The woman in black was a little impatient. Fighting and killing were their strengths. A white knife went in and a red knife came out. If there was a disagreement, they would blow you up into minced meat and corrode your bones. This was the style of their arsenal. What are you trying to do by taking such a big detour in the clouds and fog? Haven't you noticed yet? Fang Yen looked at the woman in black like he was looking at an idiot. You have been kidnapped by me. This was no longer stabbing a knife in the chest. This was throwing a bomb in the face of their arsenal. They came to kidnap and kill, but now they heard the hostages say to them, "You have been kidnapped by me." Is this guy crazy? You are the hostage, okay? We are the kidnappers, okay? You don't know your own status, and you still dare to come and negotiate with us? I know you can't accept what I said for a while, and you feel that your pride is hurt. But if you think about it carefully, everything I said is the truth. Fang Yen said, I am not as greedy as you, extorting this and wanting that. Give me that watch, tell me who ordered you. Then stop the car on the side of the road, and I will let you go. From now on, we will never meet again. Chapter 235. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. Seeing the black-faced woman trembling with anger, Fang Yen knew that his negotiation had failed. Yes, since he found out that the woman's face was darker than the clothes she wore, Fang Yen no longer called her the black-faced woman, but the black-faced woman. He wanted to call her a black-hearted woman, but for some reason, when he thought of the word black-hearted, his heart felt inexplicably uncomfortable, so he gave up the idea. Don't be angry. Fang Yen looked at the black-dressed woman slowly. Negotiation, negotiation. How can it be considered a negotiation if we don't talk? Whatever conditions you have, just say it. I'm not a person who's easy to talk to. If you're not easy to talk to, then what conditions do you want me to bring up? The black-dressed woman's face darkened even more. She looked at Fang Yen and said, I only have one condition, and that is to bring the target back. You can go, but Miss Qin must stay. Fang Yen turned around and looked at Qin Yitin. She was sitting far away in the corner of the car, letting Sha Ying's body block in front of her. Blood flowed out and soaked the hem of her dress, but she didn't care. She was very good at protecting herself. No matter what, she didn't panic and looked for the best opportunity and hiding place. Fang Yen looked at Qin Yitin thoughtfully. He really didn't know what this girl had experienced. Impossible. Fang Yen simply refused the black-dressed woman's request. If she leaves, I'll leave. If she doesn't leave, I won't leave either. Of course, she can go, but you can keep me. I'll be your hostage. You're useless. The black-dressed woman was also very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's proposal. And it was very insulting. My task is to take Miss Qin away. I thought you were a bonus, but now I find you're trouble. You can leave, but she must stay. Qin Yitin looked at Fang Yan's back and said, Fang Yan, you go. I'll stay. They don't dare to kill me. If they kill me, they won't get anything. Moreover, she would suffer the cruelest revenge from the Qin family. Regardless of whether it is her or her organization, they would not do such a stupid thing. Fang Yen shook his head and said, No. You should know that this is the best choice. I know it's the best choice. I know, but I can't. Fang Yen said rudely. If I wasn't Fang Yen, but any other teacher in the school, I would follow your advice and choose to leave by myself. Because none of them would be able to solve the problem if they stayed behind. It was very likely that they would become a resentful spirit under their blades and another broken family. I am Fang Yen. When faced with such a situation, I absolutely cannot run away and abandon my students. If my grandfather finds out, he will cut off all ties with me. If my grandfather found out, he would break one of my legs. Your family education is really good. Qin Yitin praised. Fang Yen was also very proud and said, Our Fang family is also a rich and powerful family. Fang Yen felt that it was better not to talk about this in front of Qin Yitin. It was too embarrassing. He stared at the dark-faced woman and said, If you are afraid of the organization's revenge, I can give you a clear path. Since you kidnapped a woman from the Qin family, you must have a certain understanding of the Qin family, right? Why don't you abandon the darkness and join the light? Let's send Miss Qin safely back to the Qin family. I believe the Qin family's reward is enough for you to enjoy for the rest of your life, and I can also take advantage of it. What do you think? After failing to instigate the ghost fisherman, Fang Yen had been unwilling to accept it. He stood on the side of justice, and the conditions he proposed were so generous. Why didn't those guys want to turn over a new leaf? He had read many novels where the male protagonists in other novels would immediately turn over a new leaf when they encountered a villain. They would curse and shout that they wanted to be the male protagonist's lackey, but they couldn't be beaten or scolded away. They would shelter from the sun when it was sunny, hold an umbrella when it was raining, and play the flute when the enemy came. Most importantly, they wouldn't betray and ask for money. Fang Yen felt that he was a failure as a person. So, as long as there was a chance, he would try to improve his personal charm. "I've lost my patience with you." The woman in black took out a silver ball from her waist and threw it at him. When Fang Yen saw it, he kicked the ball back. Then, he turned around and pounced on Qin Yitian. He used his own body to cover Qin Yitian from head to toe. Bang! The ball was thrown on the ground, but it didn't explode. Also did not have the intense let people open their eyes to the light circle. "This is a pair of handcuffs." The woman in black's eyes flashed with ridicule. "Open it, then lock your arms properly. Otherwise, I will press the button. Just like you said, I'm not afraid of death. But, if the mission fails, death is the best ending." Fang Yen could see that this woman was serious. If he didn't do as she said, she would really press the button and blow herself and the whole car up. Then, their bodies would be corroded by the green liquid into a pool of charred black residue. 3. The woman in black began to count. "I'll handcuff." Fang Yen said hurriedly. He could count for others, but he hated it when others counted for him. This made him feel that he didn't have much time left, as if he could die at any time. Fang Yen picked up the ball and pressed a red button on it. The ball immediately stretched out and turned into a shining silver handcuff. Fang Yen didn't know what material this handcuff was made of, but he knew that if he wore this thing, even the bone shrinking skill wouldn't be able to save him. Clang! The wheels ran over a big stone, and the whole car bounced. Fang Yan's body fell forward mechanically. Qin Yitian's and Sha Ying's corpses also fell toward the front of the car. The woman in black's body fell backward, her hands grabbing the legs of the seat to prevent her body from moving. Seeing Fang Yen rushing toward her, she was a little hesitant. Because she couldn't be sure if Fang Yen was leaning forward due to the car's unstable inertia, or if he was using this opportunity to attack. This was a serious matter. If she pressed the button, everything in front of her would disappear. It was because of this moment of hesitation that she hurt herself. Or rather, she helped Fang Yen. For her, whether she put down the button or pressed the button, there wouldn't be much difference. But for Fang Yen and Qin Yitian, there was a world of difference. Perhaps for others, she couldn't do anything in less than a second of hesitation. It was just a blink of an eye or a fart. But for Fang Yen, this little bit of time was more than enough. Fang Yan's hand shot out like lightning. The dark-skinned woman wanted to dodge, but Fang Yen still grabbed her wrist. The woman in black was furious and full of hatred. She finally let go of the thought of survival and resolutely pressed the electronic watch on her wrist. She wanted to die together with Fang Yen, Qin Yitian, and her companion Bat. This was the style of their arsenal. Because of Fang Yan's bewitching words, she actually had a fluke mentality. That was why things had been delayed until now. She regretted it so much. Too late. Fang Yan's big hand exerted force and directly crushed the woman's arm bone. Crack! The sound of bones breaking came, and her fingers couldn't press anymore. Fang Yen snatched the electronic watch from her crippled hand. He wanted to smash it into pieces, but he didn't know how to do it. He was afraid that he would detonate the bomb that the dark-skinned woman wouldn't have a chance to detonate. He wanted to open the door, but the door was blocked, and he couldn't open it. Clang! Fang Yen punched the window glass, but the glass didn't break. Fang Yen was really angry. These bastards actually used explosion-proof glass. His punch that could easily penetrate a big stone was actually useless. Clang, clang, clang. Fang Yen punched the window glass again and again. He didn't believe that he couldn't break this glass. The urgent task now was to throw this damn remote control and the thorn bomb out, and then get rid of the woman. After just 3 punches, the woman in black pounced from behind. Fang Yen turned around abruptly and sent the dark-faced woman flying with a punch. Fang Yen had practiced internal martial arts since he was young, and his strength was majestic. It wasn't something that these people who relied on high-tech weapons to kill people could compare to. The advantage of the woman in black was that she was agile and fast. Coupled with those weapons that were impossible to defend against, they were invincible and developed a proud and arrogant personality. They thought that there was nothing in this world that they couldn't do. Unfortunately, they met the true successor of Fang family Tai Chi, Fang Yan. The woman couldn't even block his punch when her hands were intact. Now that one of her arms was crushed by Fang Yan, she was even more vulnerable. Fang Yan punched out, and the woman's fist collided with his fist. Her whole body slammed into the hard floor of the car. Clang! This was the sound of a body hitting the car. Clang! This was the sound of a body sliding down the car wall. The woman had the determination to die. She didn't care, and instead exploded with even more ferocious combat power. Letting the bright red blood flow down the corner of her mouth and nostrils, the woman once again rushed toward Fang Yan. Bang! Fang Yan punched her chest, but she took the punch head-on. Her body fell to the ground, and she took the opportunity to hug Fang Yan's legs. Fang Yan was ready to lower his head and give her another punch to solve this problem once and for all. Clang, 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 clang. The car suddenly shook violently. The front of the car tilted, and it rushed toward the slope next to the mountain road. Fang Yan tried his best to use the jack to prevent his body from falling. The woman's heavily injured body swayed left and right on the cardboard, hitting the legs of the chair and the car wall. However, she really hated Fang Yan to the core. She used her relatively healthy arm to hug Fang Yan's calf tightly. She didn't have a better way to hurt Fang Yan. She suddenly opened her mouth and bit Fang Yan's leg. Fang Yan! Qin Etian screamed. Her thin body quickly rushed toward Fang Yan. A bullet pierced through Qin Etian's body and came out from Fang Yan's back. With a bang, it hit the back of the car, creating a deep dent on the solid steel plate. Chapter 236. Bat was a very calm person. He was so calm that he was almost callous. As a sniper, he had to eliminate the distractions of the harsh environment around him, learn to recognize fake movements, and search for the real body of the target amidst complicated concealment objects and strange rolling and running movements. He had to strive to achieve a headshot. If he had played a game called Counter-Strike, he would know that no one disliked the thrill of a headshot. Although the main driver's compartment and the rear compartment were separated by a plank, there was still a hole in the middle for people to communicate or pass cigarettes and alcohol. Bat had long sensed the abnormality in the rear compartment, but he was still focused on driving. They were now driving at high speed on the mountain road, and the slightest carelessness would cause the car to overturn. However, when he called Deagle's name, Deagle did not respond. His dog-like nose smelled the thick smell of blood in the rear compartment, and he knew that the situation was out of control. Otherwise, why would Octopus not even send a signal to reassure him? She did not send a signal, which meant that the development of the situation was very worrying. What a bunch of idiots, Deagle cursed in his heart. How could a guy who was bound by blood, and the bomb's remote control was still in Octopus's hand, give him time and opportunity to fight back? If he sensed anything, he would have shot him dead. He was not a big shot anyway. When he heard Octopus's painful groan, he knew that he could not wait any longer. Deagle was dead, Octopus was seriously injured, and they could escape immediately. Without any hesitation, he turned the steering wheel and drove the car towards the slope next to the mountain road. It was a steep slope, and the car sped up as it went down. Bat abandoned the car and let the car crash into the bottomless cliff. He was like a bat lying on the window and shooting at Fang Yan. He had already secretly made a small hole in the wall. He had fought with Fang Yan before. Whether it was the remote bomb codenamed Bluebird or his long-range sniper, Fang Yan had dodged all of them. Therefore, he knew very well that this guy was the real threat. As long as he killed him, everything would be fine, and they could still bring Qin Etian back to complete the mission. The car was bumpy and unstable, and with Octopus risking his life to attack, Desert Eagle easily found an opportunity to shoot. Qin Etian sat in the corner of the carriage. Although the carriage was shaking violently and their lives were in danger, Qin Etian still maintained absolute calmness. Her mother had told her that the more dangerous the situation was, the more calm she had to be. Because at that time, your time is the most precious. Don't waste a single second. They couldn't afford to waste it. Qin Etienne had always done a good job in this regard. When she saw the desert eagle outside the car window, she immediately threw herself at Fang Yan. Seeing Qin Etienne take the bullet for Fang Yan, Bat's pupils constricted. Since they kidnapped Qin Etienne, they naturally knew Qin Etienne's true identity. If he didn't conduct a thorough investigation on his target, he might slip up or offend a big shot that he couldn't afford to offend. Even if he provoked him, he still had to get a corresponding reward, right? She was the young lady of the Qin family. Such a delicate woman was willing to take a bullet for a man. That must be the legendary true love, right? Soon after, a cold smile appeared on his face. Do you think you can block my bullets just because you want to? He regretted that he didn't take out his sniper rifle. That was the weapon he was best at. With one shot, he could blast a big hole in their bodies or directly blow their heads off. Unfortunately, he kept the sniper rifle in the box, and it was not as useful in close combat as the custom-made Borg in his hand. When Bat wanted to pull the trigger again, Fang Yan disappeared right under his nose. Qin Etienne also disappeared at the same time. He knew that there was only one possibility. He was hiding next to the wall of the car that was close to him. In other words, the distance between them was only a thick wall of the car. Bang bang bang, Bat fired continuously at the wall of the car, trying to penetrate it and kill Fang Yan. Unfortunately, the bulletproof car that had been modified by the armory was extremely strong. Ordinary bullets couldn't penetrate it. Even the accelerated bullets of his Borg pistol couldn't penetrate it. The dark-skinned woman saw that Fang Yan was injured. She didn't want to give Fang Yan a chance to breathe. She climbed up from the ground and pounced on Fang Yan again. She wanted to push Fang Yan to the window, to the middle of the car, and to the shooting range of Bat. If Fang Yan died, their mission would be completed, even if they might have to pay with their lives. Fang Yan pushed Qin Etienne's body under the seat to prevent her from getting hurt again. Then he turned around and rushed toward the dark-skinned woman, letting her hold on to his arm tightly. You don't know what you have done. Fang Yan roared with a hoarse voice. His eyes were blood red, and they were filled with dense blood vessels. Qin Etienne's injury had completely infuriated him. An intense heat came from his dantian. It was as if his body was going to be incinerated. Although there was no smoke, Fang Yan felt that his body was boiling, as if he was in a big iron furnace that had just been heated. His blood was hot. It was scalding hot. This wasn't the heart of Tai Chi, nor was it the state of Tai Chi. This was the complete opposite of the calm and peaceful state of the Taiji heart, where everything was still. He wanted to vent. He wanted to expel the heat from his body. The dark-skinned woman's heart skipped a beat. She saw a suffocating murderous aura from Fang Yan's eyes. She was an assassin. How could an assassin be afraid of murderous aura? The dark-skinned woman became even crazier. She used all her strength to hit Fang Yan's body. She took out another ball from her pocket. She was going to perish together with everyone in the car. She wanted to destroy and drown everything that had failed. This was also the rule of the armory. If the mission failed, they would work hard to cover up the secret of the armory in this world. Die! Fang Yan roared. Boom! With one punch, red and white matter splattered everywhere. The head of the woman in black had actually disappeared, and she had become a headless corpse. Fang Yan punched out furiously. His aura surged and his strength was as great as Mount Tai pressing down on the Yangtze River. How could the body of a mortal withstand the pressure of Mount Tai and the rushing of a great river? Even if steel could be pierced and rocks could be smashed, a mere head would naturally be hard to find. What was even more frightening was that the flesh and blood that flew out actually carried a burnt smell. Fire chi, fire chi, fire chi. The stronger the chi, the fiercer the fire. The dark-skinned woman's petite body collapsed to the ground. Just as the ball was about to hit the ground, Fang Yan flicked it with the tip of his foot and it jumped back into Fang Yan's hand. Fang Yan's face and body were drenched in blood, and he looked like a god of death. He turned around and punched Bat's car window with a loud bang. Boom, the glass was on the verge of breaking. Boom, another punch. Cracks began to appear on the glass, and it looked like it was about to explode. In order to sneak an attack on Fang Yan, Bat had purposely opened a gap in the window. Because of this gap, He had the opportunity to shoot and injure Qin Etian and Fang Yan. However, it was also because of this gap that Fang Yan had the opportunity to smash it. If the glass was tightly fastened to the inside of the window frame, it would be like the glass on the other side, airtight and as hard as alloy. The third punch. Finally, the glass could not withstand the heavy blows and cracked open. Bat, who had been lying on the roof of the car and waiting for an opportunity to shoot, dodged the flying glass shards and raised his gun to shoot at the window. Before he could pull the trigger, Fang Yan grabbed his arm. With a forceful tug, Bat's body was pulled into the window. Although large pieces of glass fell off, there were still some glass shards stubbornly stuck to the edge of the window frame. With such a violent pull from Fang Yan, a few pieces of Bat's skin and flesh were torn off by the glass shards. A few bloody grooves appeared on his stomach and back. Only then did Bat realize that his strength was not on the same level as Fang Yan's. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from Fang Yan's iron grip. Fang Yan pressed Bat's body against the floor of the car and raised his foot. Bat's arm that was holding the gun was broken. Fang Yan raised his foot again and broke the arm that was not holding Bat's hand. His clothes were torn into pieces, his bones were crushed, and his skin and flesh were separated from his body. Fang Yan destroyed both of Bat's arms, leaving him no chance to hold the gun or turn the tables. Then he grabbed the gun from Bat's hand that was separated from his body and pulled the trigger desperately at Bat's head. Bang, 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 until all the bullets in the gun magazine were emptied. Fang Yan smashed the gun on Bat's broken body. Bat lay there motionless. His head had been smashed to pieces by Fang Yan, and his body was already dead. Clang! The car hit a boulder on the way down the slope. The car was unstable and the whole car rolled over. Clang, 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 clang. It rolled faster and faster, and was about to fall into the abyss. Fang Yan rushed over to pick up Qin Etian, and the two of them rushed toward the broken window. While their bodies were still in the air, Fang Yan flicked his finger, and a silver ball flew back into the car. Boom! A muffled sound came, and the solid car was blown into pieces. A large amount of green liquid splashed out, corroding the plants, insects, stones, and even the air into ashes. Fang Yan tiptoed, and his body bounced up again when he was about to hit the ground. He rolled a few times in the air and finally adjusted his body's balance. Then he landed steadily with Qin Etian in his arms. Qin Etian! Fang Yan shouted to Qin Etian in his arms. I'll take you to the doctor now, you can't die. Qin Etian struggled to open his eyes. His voice was weak, but there was no trace of fear. He said with a smile, I'm not as good as her, I can only help you block the knife. Chapter 237. He was on the mountainside, and the car had crashed. Fang Yan was in a dilemma. The nearest building to them was the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain. As long as he carried Qin Etian up there, he would be able to get the car. Then he would drive Qin Etian to the hospital, which would be faster. Alternatively, he could carry Qin Etian and run to the foot of the mountain, where there was a gas station and parking lot not far away. There should be a car that he could borrow. Of course, waiting by the roadside was a good way to save energy. Because there would always be some customers driving back from the Zhang Yuan restaurant at the top of the mountain after dinner, Fang Yan only needed to hijack the car halfway. Fang Yan put Qin Etian on the grass by the roadside and pressed several acupuncture points on her body. This would slow down the speed of her blood loss. He rummaged through all the pockets on his body, but they were all empty. There was no medicine to stop the bleeding or heal his wounds. He slapped himself in the face and ran to the foot of the mountain with Qin Etian in his arms. Qin Etian covered Fang Yan's chest and said, You're hurt. You're bleeding a lot. Don't talk, Fang Yan shouted. Talking would pull at the wound and even consume energy. At this time, it was very important for the body to retain some energy. If it took too long without treatment, and Qin Etian ran out of energy, she would never wake up again. Fang Yan, tell me, if I didn't rush over to block the bullet for you, could you have dodged it yourself? Qin Etian had never been an obedient person. Although Fang Yan yelled at her not to speak, she had no intention of stopping at all. Don't talk. Fang Yan was panting, and his heart was beating fast. Although he was also injured, his legs were still flying. He had to find a car as soon as possible and send Qin Etian to the hospital as soon as possible. You haven't answered my question, don't talk. Fang Yan almost roared. You haven't answered my question? Qin Etian was far more stubborn than Fang Yan imagined. We can't hide, Fang Yan said in a deep voice. Qin Etian was very happy and laughed silently. Fang Yan, you lied to me. Qin Etian's voice was very low, but his expression looked very happy. Fang Yan didn't want to reply. If he didn't talk to her, she probably wouldn't be interested in talking to him, right? In the past, I always liked to calculate. No matter what I did, I liked to think it through in my mind first. Was there any danger in this matter? Were there any loopholes in this decision? How much profit was there in this investment? Maybe it's because his IQ is not bad, he has never missed anything. Qin Etian said softly. She closed her eyes as if talking to herself. However, Fang Yan could hear every single word that came out of her mouth. Then, it flowed into his heart. People outside say that I have wisdom, and I also think I'm very smart. Calculating has become the norm of life. I don't do things based on feelings, and the rhythm of life is never off track. I also like this state. Sometimes I feel a little irritated, but at least it's comfortable and comfortable. When there's a bodyguard, you need a bodyguard to protect you. When the bodyguard is not around, you have to learn to take care of yourself. But when I saw someone shooting at you, I rushed over without thinking. I forgot to calculate and ignored the pros and cons. I just thought that I can't let him kill you. I will make sure that you live. If I live, you have to live. You idiot, I told you not to talk. You're a student, you're my student, I'm your teacher, can you listen to me for once? Fang Yan shouted while gritting his teeth. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his chest was bleeding profusely. The front half of his clothes was soaked with blood, and the back half was soaked with sweat. However, the unlucky girl in his arms was still talking non-stop. Didn't she know that it was really dangerous? If he could, he really wanted to slap her until she fainted. But he was worried that if he did that, Qin Etian would never wake up. She would never wake up. Didn't they say on TV that people who have been shot must talk more? Because that way, they won't faint. That's someone else. You won't faint. Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. He had been transferring energy into Qin Etian's body carefully and gently, so that her body's organs would always be in a basic state of operation, and her brain would always be awake. But you can't waste all this life-saving energy, right? It was fine if he could transfer it now, but if he couldn't transfer it later, Fang Yan couldn't imagine the consequences. Fighting and killing were common occurrences for martial artists. Fang Yan had experienced the test of life and death, and even suffered the torture of injuries. But he had never been as afraid as he was today. He was afraid that he would die, and he was afraid that the girl in his arms would die. I don't believe that I will faint either. Although I have no strength in my body, my brain is very clear. Qin Etian said. I know that you can dodge it. When I threw myself at you, I remembered that with your skills, you must be able to dodge it. Because I threw myself at you, it affected your performance and made you get shot together with me. I said that I can't dodge it. I'm not a god. Fang Yan corrected Qin Etian's words. Fang Yan, I said that my brain is very clear now. Qin Etian exposed Fang Yan's lie. But I like the lie you told. The reason why you said that you can't dodge it is because you don't want me to blame myself. You're afraid that I will blame myself because you start to care about me. In the evening, the sky was still full of sunlight, but at night, it became dark and cloudy, and it might rain at any time. This was the weather in the south. Beep, 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 strong lights shone, and there was a sharp sound of a car horn behind him. Fang Yan breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, there was a car coming. He did not dodge. Instead, he stood in the middle of the mountain road with Qin Etian in his arms. The driver originally wanted to crash into them, but he did not slow down and instead increased the horsepower. As the ancients said, when two people meet on a narrow road, the braver one wins. If he did not stop, the person in front would definitely dodge. The distance was getting closer and closer, but the person in the way did not jump away. Screech. The white BMW stopped in front of Fang Yan. The window was opened, and a young man with a buzz cut and earrings pointed at Fang Yan and scolded, "Are you fucking blind or deaf? You don't know how to dodge the horn, and you can't see such a strong headlight. Do you believe that I won't kill you?" There was also a coquettish girl who looked at Fang Yan with vigilance, urging her boyfriend to drive away quickly, because she found that Fang Yan and Qin Etian were covered in blood. It was really scary. Fang Yan carried Qin Etian to the passenger seat, opened the door with one hand, and dragged the girl out of the car. Then he put Qin Etian in the car and carefully helped her fasten the seatbelt. With a flip, he jumped from the top of the car to the opposite side. When the man with the earring wanted to lock the window, he had already dragged his head out and pressed it against the window, so that he could not move. "You don't mind lending me the car, do you?" As Fang Yan spoke, he had already opened the door. The man with the earrings' head was stuck in the door, and he was dragged out of the car with him. This guy was not afraid of death, and he did not even fasten the seatbelt. "No problem. No problem." The man with the earring cried and said. Originally, he wanted to say a few harsh words, but before he could open his mouth, the guy had already hit him. They were much more ruthless than him. Moreover, it was dark on the mountain road. If the robber really wanted to do anything to them, he really could not do anything. "Thank you," Fang Yan said. Clink. The door closed and the car sped away. The woman ran to the side of the man with the earring and said hurriedly, "Zhou Bing, quickly call the police. Our car was robbed." "Call the police? What police?" The man with the earring said angrily. "Who said that the car was robbed? They borrowed it. Didn't you hear him say thank you to me?" He thought, this idiot woman, if she called the police, the fact that his car was robbed would be known by his brothers in the circle. How could he go out and meet people in the future? After getting the car, the speed was obviously much faster. Fang Yan found a mobile phone in the car and said, "Give me a number." Qin Etian lay on the seat and said a row of numbers. The clouds were getting lower and the wind was getting stronger. The raindrops finally fell, beating on the car window with a pitter-patter. As soon as the car entered the suburbs, a group of people stopped Fang Yan's car. They rushed over here, led by the old housekeeper that Fang Yan had met a few times and often took the car to pick up Qin Etian. Someone opened the car door, someone helped hold an umbrella, and more people carried the unconscious Qin Etian lying on the seat. They even had a stretcher ready. Fang Yan threw away the borrowed BMW and followed. Qin Etian was sent into a huge white medical car. The doctors and nurses in white coats who were waiting in the car immediately got busy. Fang Yan wanted to get in the car, but was blocked by the old housekeeper. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. The old housekeeper did not say a word, but his attitude was very clear. Fang Yan could not go up. "Let me go up," Fang Yan said again. He punched the old housekeeper's expressionless face. Bang! The old housekeeper gently raised his hand and blocked Fang Yan's fist. The old housekeeper sighed softly and said, "Why? Mistrusted you, so I gave her to you. Now, do you still want to affect Mrs. Treatment?" Fang Yan's whole body was wet. The rain and blood mixed together. His eyes were red. He bowed deeply to the old housekeeper and said, "Please." The motorcade went away. Fang Yan, standing in the rain, felt that a piece of his heart had been dug out. Chapter 238. Qin Etian. Fang Yan shouted from the podium. No one answered. The heads of the students in the class turned to the back row, and then their gazes returned to Fang Yan. What was wrong with Mr. Fang? In the past, he knew which students were absent and which students asked for leave, and he had never made such a mistake. Just because Qin Etian wasn't around, he was in such a daze? Huang Haoren stood up and said, "Mr. Fang, Qin Etian hasn't come to class for several days." Thinking about it, he felt indignant. Very few people ran away from Mr. Fang's Chinese class, but Qin Etian was an exception. And he left just like that, without even leaving a note. He added, he didn't ask for leave either. Fang Yan looked a little absent-minded. Yes, Qin Etian hadn't come to class for several days. He left in a big way and quietly, without even leaving a note. Fang Yan had called her, but the number she used was still unavailable. Later, Fang Yan had asked Fang Yingying to go to the top of Yizhang Mountain to look for Qin Etienne's bag, but Fang Yingying had come back to report that the bag was gone. Even the GMC car that Fang Yan had said had been blown to pieces had disappeared. Yes, there would always be an end to this kind of thing. It was either that mysterious armory organization or someone from the Qin family. Any one of them had the ability to erase all traces of that night, as if nothing had ever happened. Students were required to leave a home phone number or the phone number of their immediate family in the school's file for the convenience of the school and the students' parents. However, Qin Etienne's information only had a home number in Huaqing. The call was answered by a middle-aged woman. She said that she was Qin Etienne's aunt, but the aunt's knowledge was limited. She didn't even know where Qin Etienne had gone. Qin Etienne seemed to have suddenly disappeared. He disappeared from Class 9, from Rosefinch, from Flower City, and from Fang Yan's world. Mr. Fang. Huang Haoren saw Fang Yan standing on the podium in a daze and asked, "Do you want to call Qin Etienne?" Tang Cheng's head rested on the table as he lazily said, "I've fought before." No one answered. Without Qin Etienne, Tang Cheng felt that class was too boring. Fang Yan's class was better. It was humorous and witty, and the topics were relatively new. At least it could make him a little more energetic. Besides, even if Fang Yan's class was boring, he had to force himself to be energetic. He couldn't beat Fang Yan. In other teachers' classes, he used to sleep to pass the time. If the teacher was angry and asked him to answer a question, he could answer correctly every time, leaving the teacher speechless and helpless. This kind of behavior could win a lot of applause from other students. They felt that Tang Cheng, who could answer all the questions without listening in class, was too cool. After a few times, the teachers turned a blind eye to his various bad habits. They didn't want to give this kid a chance to gain face. Qin Etienne wasn't feeling well, so he applied for leave from school in advance. "I forgot about this," Fang Yan explained. Then let Huang Haoren answer this question. When Fang Yan was in class, if the question was too profound and none of the students could answer it, Fang Yan would call out the names of Qin Etienne, Tang Cheng, or Huang Haoren. Their views on the problem could often bring surprises or inspiration. This wasn't because he was biased towards these students, but because he wanted to use this method to tell other students that any question could be answered. As long as you were good at thinking, you could do as well as them. He wanted to motivate the students' learning enthusiasm and the desire to compete with others. As long as there was competition within the class, the students' learning could continue to improve. Today, Fang Yan habitually called out the name of Qin Etienne, but the owner of that name couldn't use the most elegant posture and the most correct answer to win the students' warm applause like before. Huang Haoren didn't think too much and began to answer the questions raised by Fang Yan seriously. The bell rang, and Fang Yan walked down the podium with his textbook. Tang Cheng, who looked like he couldn't even sit up straight, suddenly jumped up and ran to the front of the podium to block Fang Yan's way. He said, "Mr. Fang, you know where Qin Etienne went, right?" Fang Yan looked at Tang Cheng's handsome facial features, and his heart was filled with infinite emotions. He didn't approve of love in high school, because this was the time to desperately absorb knowledge. This was also one of the most critical periods in one's life. Students didn't know how to reasonably arrange their time and control their feelings. They would regard love as the only thing. They would think of that person and miss that person when they were walking or eating in class. In this case, where would they have time to learn and complete the most important accumulation of knowledge in life? However, he knew that he couldn't stop this phenomenon with his own strength. If possible, he hoped that the person Qin Etienne liked was Tang Cheng. Their feelings were quiet, hidden, bitter, sweet, and most importantly, Tang Cheng also liked her wholeheartedly, just like other girls who fell in love early in high school. The biggest punishment was just the teacher's reprimand and the parents' scolding. In any case, there was no need to use his body to block bullets. An unintentional sacrifice in exchange for such a desperate return. Was it really worth it? Fang Yan's heart was in a mess. Fang Yan looked at Tang Cheng and said, "Didn't you try? You couldn't get through to her phone, and I couldn't get through to her." But Tang Cheng scratched his hair and looked a little embarrassed. He was still a student. A student asking a teacher about the whereabouts of another female student. After all, it would give people the feeling that it was too bold and direct. She will leave at any time. I didn't think such a thing would happen. However, if she really wanted to leave, she would definitely tell you. So, if there is someone in Rosefinch who can know her whereabouts, that person must be you. Fang Yen looked at Tang Qing apologetically and said, I really don't know. Fang Yen took the textbook and prepared to leave, but Tang Qing once again blocked in front of Fang Yen. Mr. Fang, tell me, did something happen to Qin Yitian? Tang Qing asked nervously. Fang Yen looked at Tang Qing and said, Why do you ask? You didn't deny. Tang Qing's face was even more embarrassed. Moreover, you haven't laughed for several days. Haven't laughed for several days? Fang Yen was stunned. Mr. Fang, if anything happens to her, you must tell me, Tang Qing said. If she gives you any information, please tell me. Tang Qing bowed to Fang Yen and said, I'll be counting on you. Oh, please. Tang Qing also said, Please. He said to the old housekeeper, Please take good care of Qin Yitian. Please save Qin Yitian no matter what. Tang Qing also said please. He hoped to know the whereabouts of Qin Yitian and whether she was doing well. Fang Yen felt the wound on his chest throbbing again. He couldn't see his face, but it must be frighteningly pale at this time, right? Fang Yen patted Tang Qing's shoulder and turned to walk out of the classroom. Tang Qing looked at Fang Yan's depressed figure and suddenly felt some sympathy for him. Headmaster Zhang Xiaofeng happened to appear at the door of the classroom. He waved at Fang Yen and said, Mr. Fang, let's walk a few steps. Fang Yen nodded and followed Zhang Xiaofeng to the teacher's office. The weather is getting colder and colder, Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. Although Huaqing is located in the southernmost part of Huaxia, it's very cold in winter. The coldness drilled into the bones, but here we are in the mood to pretend to be intimate in the room. When I first came here, this old man had suffered for a few years. Headmaster Zhang is not from Huaqing? No. From Jincheng. From Jincheng, Zhang Xiaofeng said. Jincheng's winter is also cold. It's not as cold as Huaqing's. When winter comes, it snows heavily, and the whole world is dyed white. Speaking of which, it's been a few years since I went back to Jincheng for the Spring Festival. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't beat around the bush. He looked at Fang Yen and said, Qin Yitian isn't feeling well, so she went back to Yanjing for treatment. Her family called to ask for leave. You already know about this, right? I don't know, Fang Yen said. His heart started to sink. It wasn't Qin Yitian who contacted him, but her family who contacted the headmaster directly. What happened to Qin Yitian? How serious was her injury? Had she not woken up yet? Isn't Qin Yitian quite healthy? I've never heard of any illness in the past. Zhang Xiaofeng seemed to say it casually, but in fact, he wanted to find out some real information from Fang Yen. He only received a call to ask for leave, and he had no clue what exactly happened. He still paid a lot of attention to such a girl. He was also willing to maintain a closer relationship with her and her family. Fang Yen looked at Zhang Xiaofeng with a serious expression and said, Headmaster, I don't know as much as you do. Did Qin Yitian's family say anything else? Fang Yan's reply made Zhang Xiaofeng feel regretful. He shook his head and said, Nothing much, just a call to ask for leave. I'll let you know about this. It's fine as long as you know. Fang Yen nodded and said, I know. Zhang Xiaofeng waved his hand at Fang Yen and said with a smile, Go do what you need to do. I'll go for a stroll. It was already lunchtime, and Fang Yen didn't go to the office again. When he returned to the small courtyard, he found that there were guests in the house. Two men in black stood at the door, staring warily at Fang Yen who had just pushed the door open. Fang Yen nodded to them and directly passed by them. Lu Zhaoge, who was wearing a silver professional suit that accentuated his perfect figure, sat on the sofa in the living room. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohen, the two little henchmen, accompanied him on his left and right, chatting, serving tea and fruits, and were very busy. Seeing that Fang Yen had come back, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen immediately stood up and said tactfully, You talk, you talk. Then, the two tactfully ran into the room. The living room was left to Fang Yen and Lu Zhaoge. Chapter 239. Her long hair had been specially taken care of and stretched out at the back of her neck, revealing a beautiful phoenix tail. The light yellow shirt was a perfect foil to her snow-white skin, and the tailored bright silver suit jacket made her look both serious as an office lady and fashionable as an urban woman. It had been a long time since they last met, but Lu Xiaoga still had that kind of cold and callous expression on his face. It seemed that he kept a very far distance from everyone. "I heard that you took 3 days off?" Lu Xiaoga looked at Fang Yan sitting across from her and took the initiative to ask. "I'm not feeling well," Fang Yan said. After Qin Tian was taken away, Fang Yan rushed back in the rain. The bullet didn't stay in the body, and it didn't go through the vital parts. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan both knew some treatment and bandaging methods. After being tossed around by them, Fang Yan quickly fell into a deep sleep. Fang Yan woke up in the morning the next day, but he was only 1 hour later than when he woke up at 6 in the morning to practice his stance. The wound wasn't inflamed, his body didn't have a fever, and Fang Yan felt very hungry. It seemed that he was recovering well. Fang Yan took 3 days off and went to class on the 4th day. He sat there doing nothing but dialing Qin Tian's phone number over and over again. He turned off his phone, turned off his phone, turned off his phone, almost driving him crazy. Therefore, he handed this task to the unemployed Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan and went to class as usual. After entering the state of work, Fang Yan's restless heart calmed down. This was the state he wanted. The war was imminent, and he needed to keep his body strong and his heart calm. Unfortunately, after he and Qin Tian were shot at the same time, these two things were far away from him. "I only took 3 days off, yet someone reported it to Lu Xiaoga. I have to say, it seems like everyone firmly believes that I and Lu Xiaoga are a couple." "You look haggard," Lu Xiaoga said. "Really?" Fang Yan wanted to look at himself in the mirror, but he gave up on the idea. What did it matter to him to be haggard or not? "From the first time I saw you, you cut my flower arrangement in the office, until I left school, even when we were at our most difficult times, you never showed such decadence. Proud, motivated, and fearless. This is the Fang Yan I know." Lu Xiaoga looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes and asked, "What are you worried about?" Fang Yan smiled bitterly. "These women were all shrewd. Do you still want people to live? Let's not talk about me anymore." Fang Yan wanted to change the topic. "How are the preparations for your company?" "Chaoyan Technology is progressing very well. The office and research room have been renovated. Because the research on bioenergy is a secret project, we have put in enough effort in security. The next step is to recruit people. Our partners will send some elites over, but the middle-level and low-level personnel still have to be recruited one by one from the talent market. In 2 days, we can open for business. Do you want to go and take a look?" "I'm not going," Fang Yan rejected. "I believe in your ability. The company's matters are finished," Lu Xiaoga said. "Now can you tell me what you are worried about?" Lu Xiaoga frowned slightly and said, "If you are not happy at school, you can leave or go to Chaoyan Technology. Although those companies are still safe for the time being, the temptation of the magic cube is too great. I believe they won't give up. They also need you there." Seeing that Fang Yan didn't respond, Lu Xiaoga explained, "I didn't come here to ask you to go to Chaoyan for help. I know what your choice is. I just want to tell you. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. Even if you lock yourself in this yard every day to practice, I think it's a very good choice." Fang Yan looked at Lu Xiaoga thoughtfully and said, "Why do you care about me so much?" "Because." Lu Xiaoga picked up the tea that Fang Yingying brought on the table, avoided Fang Yan's eyes, and said, "Auntie said that in this world, you are the only person who really cares about us. I think so too." "Your auntie is a very great woman," Fang Yan said. "Under such a harsh environment, she used her entire life to make a bet. In the end, she won the bet. That's because of you. If it weren't for you, the biggest variable, I would have died long ago, and auntie would have lost the bet." Fang Yan shook his head. It was really not easy for this woman to survive such a serious injury. After 2 lessons, he wanted to drink a sip of water, but Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan hid in the room and didn't come out, so he had to stand up and pour himself a cup of water. As soon as he got up, Lu Xiaoga had already taken the teacup and tea leaves to help him make a cup of tea. The teacup was Lu Xiaoga's, and the tea leaves were also Lu Chaoga's. She was more familiar with this house than Fang Yen. "Thank you," Fang Yen said. He felt a little embarrassed. After all, Lu Chaoga was a guest from afar. "If it's not convenient to say, I won't force you," Lu Chaoga said. "Grandma called me and asked me to go to her house for dinner." Fang Yen had a headache and said, "You are so busy with work, how can Grandma bother you? You can refuse directly." "I accept," Lu Chaoga said. "To be honest, I was very happy to receive a call from Grandma." Grandma was very dissatisfied with Fang Yen. She ignored the big and small bags of gifts in his hands and directly lost her temper at him. She said, "I don't understand. Isn't it just being a class teacher? You are so busy that you don't even have time to go to Grandma's house for a meal. Fortunately, we live in the same yard. If you still live in Yanjing, I'm afraid I won't be able to see you for the rest of my life." "It's my fault, my fault." Fang Yen apologized again and again. There were some things that were not convenient for him to say, and the reasons that were convenient to say were difficult to convince Grandma. He simply bowed his head and apologized to appease Grandma's anger. Because except for your closest relatives, no one would care where you ate and how long you didn't come back for dinner. Lu Chaoga also spoke up for Fang Yen and explained, "It's my fault. My company has just been established, and I need Fang Yan's help with many things." Grandma said in a hurry, "It's not your fault, it's not your fault. It's only right that Fang Yen goes to help. If he doesn't, who will? I'm just afraid that he's so clumsy that he can't do anything right." Fang Yen felt as if his wound, which had yet to heal, had been ruthlessly poked again. She was his own grandma. Lu Chaoga couldn't help but laugh at her grandma's amusing remark. "Fang Yen is quite capable." So what? Luckily he's only a class teacher. If he becomes the principal, I won't be able to see my grandson for years to come. Chaoga, you can't learn from him. Let Fang Yen do everything for you, and you need to take good care of yourself. Come to my place for dinner when you're free, and I'll make soup for you. Oh, I noticed that you liked fish last time, so I made some different kinds today. Here, try them. Fang Yen, go upstairs and tell your grandpa to come down for dinner. Fang Yen sighed softly in his heart as he watched his grandmother pull Lu Zhaoga's hand affectionately into the house for dinner. It seemed that his grandma, like all the other teachers at school, had misunderstood his relationship with Lu Chaoga. It was time to have a talk with him. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Qianya Haowu used to make a whooshing sound when he attacked, but now it was a whooshing sound. His father had told him that he could start learning sword techniques when his attacks were silent. The true North Star one-blade flow sword technique had been improved upon and developed by his father. What Qianya Haowu needed to do was to perfect his father's improved sword techniques, find his own unique sword techniques, and develop them again. Qianya Haowu would inherit the honor of the light of the North Star. He was grateful to his father for bringing him to Huaxia. Stepping on this fertile land and feeling Fang Yan's existence at such a close distance, he was filled with passion and inspiration. His only hope, was that he did not die under his father's sword when his sword Dao reached great accomplishment. Qianya Haowu stood under the osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The osmanthus flowers had bloomed, but the leaves on the tree were still green. Not in good condition? Qianya Haowu said with a smile. If it's because the battle is approaching, such an opponent won't be able to withstand a single blow. Qianya Haowu stood behind her father and held his favorite teapot. She said, "Father, if that's the case, can we postpone the date of the battle? Just as you said, an opponent who isn't in his best condition can't be my father's opponent. If teacher Fang Yen was given more time, he might have performed better. If we postpone the battle this time, he'll think he's lucky." Qianya Haowu said. The people of Huaxia often say that the first spurt of energy will weaken, and the third will be exhausted. I need him to perform his best under high pressure. Only then will I be interested in fighting him. Father, will you kill Fang Yen Haowu? Qianya Haowu asked worriedly. Qianya Haowu glanced at his daughter and said with a smile, "It's late. Go back to sleep." He took the teapot from Qianya Haowu and walked past Qianya Haowu, who was still stabbing his sword with all his might. He said, "Entertain my guest." Hearing that, Qinya Haowu immediately followed his father outside with his sword in hand. In the long and narrow alley, a black figure stood tall and straight. Seeing two figures, one tall and one short, walking toward him from afar, his eyes turned cold, and he tightened his grip on his sword. Qinya Haowu stopped and looked at the black shadow. He asked in a deep voice, "Do you want to challenge him?" Chapter 240. His eyes were sharp, his expression was cold, and he was wearing a black shirt. His head was slightly lowered. He didn't look at Chiba Baryoku, but at the ground under his feet. He was holding a simple and unadorned long sword in his hand, looking like a peerless master. You could think of him as a young version of Yi Guqing or a black-clothed version of Shimenchueshue. That is, if you ignored his round figure. Yes. "I want to challenge you," Fang Yingying said proudly. "Raise your head," Chiba Baryoku said. "What's wrong with this challenger? You always have your head down. You have to let people see what you look like and see if you're worthy of my sword." "No," Fang Yingying said with a tough attitude. If he said no, he wouldn't. There was no room for discussion. "Why is that?" Chiba Shinobu's curiosity was piqued. Could it be that this was a new fighting method that had just become popular in Huaxia? Chiba Baryoku had such a good habit. He was knowledgeable and greedy for novelty. No matter what kind of fighting method or skill it was, he was willing to appreciate it. Discard the dregs and take the essence. In the end, he took those things for himself. He gathered the strengths of hundreds of schools and achieved the glory of the God of Swords. No reason. Just think of it as my neck sprained. Fang Yingying said. He didn't want to raise his head. Because he heard from Junior Martial Uncle that when he saw Chiba Baryoku, he had a feeling that he couldn't make a move. Since even Junior Martial Uncle couldn't make a move when he saw this old monster, he couldn't make a move. Fang Yingying thought hard and finally found a way to deal with Chiba Baryoku. "I won't look at you. I won't even look at you. Naturally, I can make a move, right?" Fang Yingying felt that he was too king smart. Chiba of the army stared at Fang Yingying and looked a little dispirited. He took a sip of tea from the small teapot and said, "I was looking forward to a battle, but I didn't expect it to be two naughty kids. Come out, my little friend." Fang Haohen, who was also dressed in black, walked out from the corner of the courtyard. He angrily said to Fang Ying, "He called me little friend. How am I small? Don't stop me, I want to fight to the death with him." After Fang Yingying came out, Qin Yin, who was dressed in black and had his entire head covered in a hat, also walked out from the shadows. He had been monitoring Fang Haohen all this while, but this guy didn't make any strange movements, so he didn't act rashly. After all, this was Huaxia, and they still had some scruples. If someone dared to pry into the Sword God's family's privacy in the East Ocean, they would have been beheaded by him. Qin Yin walked up to Chiba of the army and said in the East Ocean language, "I've searched, and there are no suspicious people around." Fang Yingying was very dissatisfied with Fang Haohen's attitude. He said, "Fang Haohen, I'm now in a state of battle, pouring qi into my dannan and becoming one with my sword. Don't you know that talking to me at this time will affect my fighting qi? What's more annoying is that you actually came to tell me a joke." Fang Haohen felt very wronged and said, "I'm not joking." Chiba of the army was really speechless at these two challengers. He said, "Please go back. You are no match for me." He didn't sense any dangerous aura from them, and he didn't even have the mood to fight. When he had just become famous, such challengers would come to him every day. There were at least 800 if not 1,000. Later, when he became more and more famous, those people suddenly disappeared. He didn't expect that not long after he arrived in Huaxia, there would be people from Huaxia coming to challenge him, and opponents of this level. It was extremely boring. Clang. Fang Yingying nimbly pulled out the long sword in his hand and still didn't look at Chiba of the army's eyes. He said, "Let's begin. I'm going to cut you down with my sword and establish my undefeated reputation." Qin Yin was angry and said to Chiba of the army in a deep voice, "Master, Qin Yin requests to fight." "Forget it," Chiba of the army said. He knew Qin Yin's way of doing things. If he allowed him to fight, he was afraid that neither of these two kids would go back. Killing people here was a big taboo, and there was no need to be angry over a few kids. Chiba of the army held the small teapot and turned back leisurely. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were a little dumbfounded. Chiba of the army didn't want to fight them? Hero, what should we do? Fang Haohen said anxiously. If he doesn't fight you, how can I film? How do I know? Fang Yingying said impatiently. Fang Yan was injured, and the bullet passed through his body. Although there was no danger to his life, and it wouldn't even affect Fang Yan's normal work and teaching students. However, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, who were both from martial arts families, understood that this was a very fatal thing for a duelist who was about to fight with a master. This bullet didn't take Fang Yan's life, but it drained the blood in his body. Without vigor, how could a man be strong? Of course, if the one fighting with Fang Yan was at the level of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen wouldn't be worried at all. They were very clear that even now, they couldn't beat Junior Martial Uncle. However, the one fighting with Junior Martial Uncle turned out to be a master who had entered the cliff wall stage. Ah, the cliff wall stage, such a strong person, I'm afraid you wouldn't see one in your lifetime. In this case, the impact of the bullet on Fang Yan was enough. Without a peaceful state of mind and a healthy body, without full spirit, without high fighting spirit, without a strong desire to live, how could Fang Yan win? Fang Yan's wound was bandaged by Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, and they were also diligent in changing the dressing. Fang Yingying had unintentionally probed, since the injury was so serious, could the duel be postponed or simply cancelled? Fang Yan shook his head, saying that it couldn't be cancelled, nor could it be postponed. Fang Haohen said that they might as well not go. Would he run to the school to hurt people? Fang Yan shook his head and said, the news of my duel with the Chiba army has been spread out by people with intentions. After the Chiba army came to Huaxia, the first person they challenged was me. Now it's not just a duel between me and the Chiba army, but a duel between the Huaxia martial artists and the Japanese martial artists. I can lose, I can die. However, I have to go. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were really anxious. Fang Yan said that he could lose, he could die. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen didn't want Fang Yan to die. The two of them thought about it and decided to find the Chiba army for a duel first. Fang Yingying acted as a meat shield and took the initiative to challenge the Chiba army, while Fang Haohen secretly filmed with a digital camera. Whether the Chiba army injured Fang Yingying or killed Fang Yingying, he couldn't show up and call the police with the digital camera. At that time, the police would arrest or deport the Chiba army, and Junior Martial Uncle wouldn't have to participate in the duel anymore, right? For Fang Yan, they were not afraid of losing, nor were they afraid of death. Their plan was exquisite, but the Chiba army was not willing to make a move at all. Fang Yingxiong bellowed as he charged towards the Thousand Leaves military department with his long sword. He was very fast and he used the Fang Plum Blossom steps with all his strength. Bang! Fang Yingying's body flew back. The Chiba army didn't make a move, nor did Qing Yin and Chiba Haohen. Fang Yingying covered his stomach and coughed violently. Fang Haohen cried out in surprise. Miss Yi Ro, who was wearing a black leather coat and had short hair, stood in front of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen. Seeing the sword in Fang Yingying's hand and the digital camera in Fang Haohen's hand, she was even more angry. She slapped Fang Yingying's head and asked in a sweet and arrogant voice, "Did you come up with this stupid idea again?" Fang Yingying didn't dare to dodge. He hurriedly explained, "It's not me, it's really not me." Slap. Yi Ro slapped his head again and said, "How dare you lie again?" Monsieur, slap. Yi Ro slapped him on the head again. "Stop it, stop it." Fang Yingying howled with his hands covering his head. "I confess it's me. It's what I want. Monsieur, stop it. I was going to confess just now." "I know." Yi Ro looked like she understood. "I'm used to it. I think it's more rhythmic to slap you 3 times. Fang Yingying opened his eyes and mouth wide. He looked at Yi Ro and couldn't say a word for a long time. Is it necessary to beat someone rhythmically? Seeing Yi Ro staring at the digital camera in his hand, Fang Haohen's face became even paler. He hurriedly hid the digital camera behind his back, but soon realized that it was an insult to Miss Ye's IQ. He quickly took it out and said with a smile, "Miss Yi, It's all Fang Yingying's stupid idea? In fact, I don't agree with it. I strongly opposed it, but he threatened me with force. So, I could only follow him to this side. Bang! Before Fang Haohen finished his words, his body flew out. Yi Rou clapped her hands and said coldly, although Fang Yingying's idea is a bit stupid and he looks a bit wretched, at least he has a good mind. The Fang family raised you and taught you, but you are not even willing to make this sacrifice. Instead, you drag others down and betray your friends. If we weren't in front of outsiders, I would beat you to death. Fang Yingying nodded again and again, smiling so much that his eyes couldn't be seen. Yi Rou waved her hand and said, "Get out. Don't let me see you again." Fang Haohen climbed up from the ground and ran to Fang Yingying, saying, "Hero, she asked us to get out. This is an insult to us. Should we be angry?" Fang Yingying slapped Fang Haohen's head and scolded, "What's the use of being angry?" Influenced by Yi Rou, Fang Yingying also liked this kind of movement of slapping people's heads. Needless to say, there was indeed a sense of rhythm when he smoked. It was very satisfying. Fang Haohen thought it was right and said, "Then I won't be angry." Chapter 241. Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohen didn't leave. They knew that although Yi Rou was a fierce woman who would beat people up at the slightest provocation, she didn't come to the Ministry of War alone to have tea and chat with them. Based on Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohen's low IQ, they guessed that she might have the same goal as them. She wanted to drive the Chiba military division out of China so that Fang Yan wouldn't have the chance to fight with them. Thinking of this, Fang Haohen had already thought of a way to please Yi Rou. He walked quickly to Miss Yi and handed her the camcorder in his hand, saying, "Miss Yi, I didn't use this thing just now. I think you might need it. Here you are." Slap. Fang Haohen was slapped on the head again. Fang Yingying had just learned the trick of slapping the head from Yi Rou, and now he was addicted to it and couldn't stop. He carefully recalled the moment when he slapped Yi Rou. When Fang Haohen was about to lose his temper, he shouted at Fang Haohen first, "Fang Haohen, you idiot! Even if you give the camcorder to Miss Yi can't use it. Who can shoot while fighting?" Fang Haohen was stunned and said, "Then what should we do?" "Idiot." Fang Yingying wanted to slap Fang Haohen's head again, but Fang Haohen dodged it first. "Of course we'll use the camcorder to shoot for Miss Yi." Fang Yingying turned to look at Yi Rou and said, "Miss Yi, do you think I'm right?" Yi Rou's eyebrows twitched as she clenched her fists. Suppressing the urge to beat these two idiots to death on the spot, he said with a fierce expression, "You two idiots, can't you use your brain to think instead of your knees? Don't do such shameful things in the future, okay? Do you think you can kick him out of Huaxia just because you took a DV camera? He doesn't even need to do anything. His disciple will deal with the two of you. Even if you succeed and use this method to expel Huaxia back to Japan, our Huaxia martial artists will still become the laughingstock of the world, and you will also become the shame of Huaxia martial artists. In the future, don't learn from that wretched bastard junior martial uncle. Isn't it good to speak and do things with dignity? Put away your camcorders and scram as far as you can. Don't let me see you again. Every time I see you, I want to beat you up dozens of times." Thump, thump, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen ran far away and peeped at them from the corner of the yard. "You scared me to death," Fang Haohen said with his hand on his chest. He had the look of a frightened young man. "We didn't tell anyone. Why did the whole world laugh at us?" Fang Yingying couldn't figure it out. Of course, things like secretly taking photos had to be done in secret. Yi Rou looked at Chiba of the army and said in a calm voice, "I'm sorry for the mischief of my family. They don't have the right to make you draw your sword, but I want to have a try. I want to challenge you." Qing Yin was so angry that he rushed to where Yi Rou was standing. "Come back," Chiba of the army shouted. Qing Yin retreated again, as if he had never left. He moved as fast as the wind and as fast as lightning. Chiba of the army looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen not far away and then at Yi Rou. He said with a smile, "Did Fang Yan send you?" "No one sent us," Yi Rou said. "Fang Yan doesn't know we're here." "That's true. It's hard for a person with bad intentions to achieve such a high level at such a young age," Chiba of the army said. I know you. My daughter is studying in Rosefinch. When she came back, she said that a beautiful woman beat up Fang Yen in front of many students. That woman is you, right? It's me, Yi Rou said. Chiba of the army shook his head slightly and said, You want to hurt my body and heart of the sword so that Fang Yen can have an advantage in the battle with me? Yi Rou was a little unhappy. Does this old guy want to fight? If he wants to fight, then fight. Why is he talking so much nonsense? I'm here because you're a brilliant opponent, Yi Rou said. We, the warriors of Huaxia, are not afraid of challenges and are willing to take the initiative to challenge stronger enemies. You want Fang Yen to practice swordsmanship for you, and I also want to defeat you to forge an undefeatable heart of the sword. I like this answer better, Chiba of the army said. Adversity produces talents, and desperation produces masters. If you're all here for Fang Yen, you don't have to. Without experiencing blood and fire, how can you have supreme cultivation and set foot on the path to the heavens? Sword, Yi Rou shouted. Fang Ying threw the sword hard, and Yi Rou caught the sword in his hand. Clang. Yi Rou quickly drew the sword, looked at Chiba of the army and said, I'll take it as a yes. Before she finished her words, she had already rushed toward Chiba of the army with a sword. Chiba of the army was excited. He liked to watch his father fight with others at such a close distance. He preferred to see his father effortlessly defeat his opponent. It was a feeling that everything was under his control. He was at ease, as though there was nothing in the world he couldn't do. This man was his father, the man he admired the most and yearned to surpass. It was a wonderful feeling. So, Qin Yin grabbed his arm, tapped the tip of his foot, and leaped backward, jumping out of the combat range. He ran in a straight line. A straight strike. Just like Yi Rou's character, there were no overly flashy moves, nor were there any illusions. She simply thrust the sword at Chiba of the army. It was also because of Yi Rou's character that she was able to achieve so much at such a young age. Those with great providence were definitely people with merit. Fang Jing was straightforward. That was Yi Rou's character. This was also the reason why Old Drunkard preferred Yi Rou over his junior brother, Fang Yen, because he felt that Fang Yen was too embarrassing. However, Chiba of the army, who was known as the god of swords of Japan, didn't slack off at all. No one knew better than him that this simple strike of Yi Rou's was not simple at all. This strike went straight for the 3 vital points and 13 important acupoints on his chest. At the same time, his facial features and even his entire head were covered in the strike. 3 flowers in 1 sword, initial success in swordsmanship. 7 flowers in 1 sword, advanced to the next level. Flower rain in the sky, Grandmaster. This was the basic common sense to evaluate a swordsman. According to this standard, Yi Rou's strike didn't even have a flower, and her level couldn't even be called initial success in swordsmanship. However, if one's swordsmanship reached the realm of return to simplicity, there wouldn't even be a flower. No flower meant that the world was full of sword flowers. No illusion meant that any illusion could be created. Just as Yi Rou's long sword reached Chiba of the army's chest, Chiba of the army moved like lightning. A long white robe with wide sleeves. A white, almost transparent hand stretched out from the sleeve. It was so relaxed that it looked like a fairy brewing tea or a Buddha picking flowers. Clang. Chiba of the army caught the tip of the long sword with 2 fingers. Whoosh! Yi Rou's sprinting speed finally stopped. No sound could be heard, but the fierce chi rolled up the dead leaves and dust on the ground. They flew all over the sky like butterflies playing in the wind. Yi Rou shook her wrist, and the long sword broke into 2 pieces. One piece was caught between Chiba of the army's fingers, and the other was still in her hand. Yi Rou raised her sword and stabbed again. Clang. Chiba of the army stretched out his fingers again and caught the blade of Yi Rou's sword again. Yi Rou shook her wrist again, and the long sword broke into 2 pieces again. When Yi Rou stabbed for the 3rd time, Chiba of the army still caught the sword with his fingers. Crack, crack, crack. The long sword in Yi Rou's hand suddenly broke into countless pieces, and the countless pieces stabbed toward Chiba of the army like countless knives. The heavenly net was densely packed, enveloping the vital points of Qin Ye Bing's body. As long as any of the pieces pierced him, Chiba of the army would pay a heavy price, if not dead. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were both shocked by this scene. Fang Yingying cried out in surprise, "Did you see that? Heavenly Maid's scatterflowers. The legendary Heavenly Maid's scatterflowers." Fang Haohen, how long has it been since you saw the real Heavenly Maid scatterflowers? 2 years ago, when Miss Yi competed with Junior Martial Uncle, she used Heavenly Maid's scatterflowers on Junior Martial Uncle. Miss Ye's kung fu became more advanced. Fang Haohen, who was busy filming with the DV, said, "At that time, Junior Martial Uncle caught 13 pieces. The rest were all stuck on him." Fang Yingying thought in his heart, "I don't know how many pieces this old monster Chiba of the army can catch." Chiba of the army's eyes shone with a strange light. Beautiful. Without any external force at all, he only used his own internal strength to shatter the hard sword into pieces, and then used the air and wind to attack the enemy. It was impossible to guard against and dodge. Chiba of the army stretched out his hands, and his wide sleeves waved in the wind like silk. Clang. With a crisp sound, Chiba of the army's body became calm again. However, the countless sword pieces that Yi Ro had thrown out suddenly disappeared, as if they had never appeared. Yi Ro didn't give up. Her body was infinitely close to Chiba of the army. Using the last small part of the sword on the hilt, she fiercely stabbed Chiba of the army's chest. Chiba of the army's body jumped into the air for no reason, and when he was in the air, he waved his sleeves very naturally. Clatter! A silver light flashed, and the sky was full of stars. The pieces collected by Chiba of the army's sleeves became his killing weapons, whistling and rushing at Yi Ro. They were faster and more aggressive. Those sharp blades became an orderly saber formation, and all the sharp tips were densely aimed at Yi Ro, who was rushing at him. Yi Ro could be stabbed into mud at any time, which was extremely dangerous. Chapter 242. Fang Yingying was about to rush to the scene of the fight, but Fang Haohen grabbed him. Fang Yingxiong's face and neck turned red as he roared, "Hero Fang, let go of me right now." This woman was Yi Ro, the eldest daughter of the Yi family. She was a close friend of their master, and Junior Martial Uncle's nemesis and nemesis. If it weren't for her, who would correct their moves and call them fools? If it weren't for her, who could beat Junior Martial Uncle to death year after year and make such rapid progress in martial arts, from the shame of the Fang family to the shame of the Fang family? Nothing could happen to her. Nothing could happen to her. If something happened to Yi Ro, they couldn't explain to their master, Junior Martial Uncle, or the elders of the Yi and Fang families. They were men, and they had to stand in front of this woman. This was the responsibility that Guanyin Bodhisattva Gautama Buddha gave him. "You can't save her." Fang Haohen grabbed Fang Yingying's arm and wouldn't let go. "Of course I know I can't save her." Fang Yingying yelled. "I'm strong enough to block the sword." While Fang Yingxiong and Fang Haohen were still being lovey-dovey with each other, Yi Ro had already prepared the counterattack that she should have. Yi Ro jumped high into the air with the tip of her foot. She was like a black bird sprinting high into the sky, like a rocket without a booster. She jumped very, very high, so high that ordinary people would be afraid of her. Qing Yin was a ninja, and he had always been proud of his speed and qinggong. He had dominated the 37 islands in the East Ocean, and he thought he could make a name for himself in Huaxia. However, this young girl just lightly tiptoed, like a beautiful firework leaping into the sky. Did she think about other people's feelings? "Qing Yin, can you do it?" Chiba Haomu raised his head and asked expectantly. His eyes were filled with excitement and desire. The world was vast, and martial arts were magical. There were all kinds of strange martial arts and masters. He really hoped that he could become one of them. He also hoped that he could be like his father and fight to the death with the most powerful opponents in the world. This was how a martial artist should be. "I can," Qing Yin said. If he tried his best, he could do as well as Yi Ro. If he had the help of some tools, he could do better than Yi Ro. However, very quickly, his eyes blazed with divine light and his pupils became abnormally bright. With an excited expression, he said, "I can't do it." He even pulled down the hat that had been covering his head. It was a thin and shriveled middle-aged man, his face covered in scars. This is what he left behind in order to become a qualified jonin and pass the beauty array. No one's success was by chance, regardless of whether that person was a Huaxia or an East Asian. As a martial artist, they already had the spirit to sacrifice themselves for the martial Tao. In his eyes, the current Yi Ro could be called a miracle. When Yi Ro's body leaped to the highest point, she completely dodged the sweeping sword forest. Yi Ro's feet swayed as if she was walking in the air. She jumped above Chiba Hashirama, who was in midair, and stepped on the top of Chiba Hashirama's head. It was only an inch, but the energy brought up by it reached a radius of several meters. A strong whirlpool of air formed around her, enveloping herself and Chiba Hashirama, and then she stepped on him from top to bottom. Chiba Hashirama didn't dodge. He held his right index finger and middle finger together like a sword. The sword was full of murderous intent, and it stabbed at Yi Ro's foot. Whoosh! The sword energy pierced through the sole of Yi Ro's black leather boots and pierced the flesh of her foot. Like a huge balloon being pierced by a needle, the airflow suddenly disappeared. Yi Ro felt the danger. She borrowed the force of her body in the air again, rolled twice in a row, and fell far away to the ground. It was precisely because of her dodge that she avoided Chiba Hashirama's next killing move. Clap, clap, clap. Yi Ro fell to the ground and took 3 steps back in succession. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It wasn't until then that the blade fragments pierced into the walls and tree trunks after a short flight, not even leaving a trace. Yi Ro frowned slightly and looked at Chiba Hashirama more fiercely. This old monster had entered the state of being one with his sword. He was the sword, and the sword was him. There was no part of his body that wasn't a sword, and there was no part of his body that wasn't a sword. He killed people with sword energy, and he killed people invisibly. Chiba Hashirama's body landed gently, neither too fast nor too slow, and his movements were as smooth as flowing water. In this round, Chiba Hashirama won a small victory. "You want to kill people," Yi Ro said. "Death and injury are inevitable in a competition," Chiba Hashirama said with a smile. "Either you step on my dead body to achieve supreme glory, or you become a dead soul under my sword. Who cares?" "I don't understand. There are so many masters in Huaxia, and there are so many eccentric hermits. Why do you have to fight with Fang Yan? With your cultivation at the absolute wall stage, his chances of winning are slim. Is it really because he is an opponent worthy of your sword?" "Because he is an opponent worthy of my sword," Chiba Hashirama said calmly. His attitude was very firm. "There are many people worthy of your sword. Tao addict Song Zaniang, martial addict Ho Zhendong, nation master Li Zonghao, and hermit weed of Weed Temple in the south. Which one of them is not a first-class master in the world? Aren't they worthy of your sword? Chiba Hashirama, you bully the weak with your power." Yi Ro pointed to Chiba Hashirama, who was not far away, and asked, "Is that your son?" "Yes." "He is Chiba Hashirama," Chiba Hashirama said calmly. "If I challenge him and set up a fight to the death, what will you do?" Yi Ro sneered. "What's the difference between your behavior and what I'm going to do? If he admits defeat, the death will naturally be solved. If he accepts your challenge, then he must go all out." Chiba Hashirama looked at Yi Ro and said, "Miss Yi, I understand what you mean. You think I'm looking for Fang Yan to avenge my son and vent my hatred for my disciple, right? If he is willing to admit defeat, this competition will be cancelled immediately." Yi Ro was silent. She knew that Fang Yan would not admit defeat. He could admit defeat to her, or even lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. He could admit defeat to the old drunkard. In order to force the old drunkard to teach him drunken crane riding the wind, he cried, made a scene, and asked him to be his master. After his plan to hang himself in front of the old drunkard failed, he threatened to secretly pee in the old drunkard's wine jar. But when did he admit defeat to others? When the Bailey family challenged him, even if he was beaten badly, didn't he grit his teeth and persist? The Tang family and the Fang family had been enemies for generations. The two families often fought each other. He was surrounded and beaten into a dumpling. He was beaten unconscious, but he didn't admit defeat. Wasn't admitting defeat to the Japanese Chiba Shinobi Division even more difficult for him to accept than killing him? Miss, fighting with the heavens is endless joy. Fighting with the earth is endless joy. Fighting with others is endless joy. This is what you Huaxia people say. Have you forgotten it? Chiba Hashirama comforted her with a smile. It's rare to see a Tao querying expert. Please forgive me for my eagerness to hunt. So, miss, please do your best in the next battle. Yi Rose stopped talking and took out a dragon head dagger from her waist. Of course, this wasn't a real dagger. She pulled the dragon's eye with both hands, and the bright dagger flew out of the dragon's head. Between the dragon's head and the dagger was a rope with dragon scales on it. Dragon whip. Yi Rose held the dragon's head in her hand and shook her wrist. The dagger on the whip tip flew toward Chiba Hashirama not far away. The dragon scale rope was made of an unknown material. It let out a sharp dragon roar. The whip moved like a long knife or a sharp sword, cutting through the air and making a hissing sound. This time, Chiba Hashirama didn't wait for the weapon to reach him to intercept it. He stretched out his body and flew toward Yi Rose. His long hair and loose robe fluttered in the wind. He looked like an immortal descending to the mortal world. He ignored the whip tip that was aimed at the major acupoints on his chest. Even when the sharp blade came, he only flicked his finger. Clang. With a crisp sound, the dagger lost its aim and flew to the side. At this moment, he had already rushed into the inner palace and entered Yi Rose's defensive range. He slashed his palm toward Yi Rose's neck. His palm was also a sword, and the sword energy was shocking. Yi Rose shook her wrist again and pulled the dagger back, stabbing it toward Chiba Hashirama's heart from behind. At this moment, Chiba Hashirama could cut off Yi Rose's neck with his palm, but he would also be pierced by Yi Rose's dragon whip. He could either dodge or die together. This was Yi Rose's deliberate plan to hurt both sides. Chiba Hashirama looked at Yi Rose. In order to express her determination, Yi Rose closed her eyes at this critical moment. Chiba Hashirama knew that this girl was ready to sacrifice herself. When two people met on a narrow path, only the one who was not afraid of death could take advantage. Chiba Hashirama sighed softly and his figure became illusory. Clap. He slapped Yi Rose's chest. The dagger that was about to stab into his back did stab into his heart, but it went through his heart again. What the dagger stabbed was only his illusion. His movements were too fast, and even when he had already left, his body was still in the same place without any change. His body disappears, and your eyes deceive you. Puff! Yi Rose spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward in the air. Chapter 243. It was too fast and too urgent. Fang Yingying realized that the situation was not good and rushed over to pick her up. She was about to hit the ground halfway. Whether it was Qianye of the Ministry of Arms or Yi Rose, their full speed was not something that ordinary people could catch up with. Fang Ying wasn't weak, but he was still several levels below them. This had nothing to do with hard work, but talent. Some people were born to be martial arts geniuses. Bang! A black figure rushed over from behind Fang Yingying, stepped on his shoulder, and leaped over his head. He jumped up high and caught Yi Rose's body, who had lost control of her body, and held her in his arms. A cool breeze blew, and the moonlight shone leisurely. Yi Rose opened her eyes and saw Fang Yan's worried eyes. Her beautiful eyes were instantly filled with anger, and she said angrily, "Why are you here?" "Why you here?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "I'm here to challenge the Thousand Leaves Military Department," Yi Wen said. "I also want to challenge the Thousand Leaves Military Department." "He's the one I want to challenge. This is my battle. What are you doing here?" Yi Rose was furious. This feeling was too embarrassing. It was just like when he was a child and suddenly wanted to steal his cousin's makeup box to put on makeup for himself. In the end, he found a pair of eyes peeking at him from the window halfway through. She flew into a rage, and her eyes disappeared with a grin. From then on, she had the nickname Monkey King. She swore that she would beat up Fang Yan every time she saw him. "Miss, are you being reasonable?" "All right, I know you've always been unreasonable. But first come, first served, right?" Fang Yen explained patiently, "He is my opponent. Even if you want to challenge him, you'll have to be behind me. Who set the rules for queuing? I want to challenge him now, I'm willing. If you're not convinced, hit me." This woman was always like this, making it impossible for people to talk to her nicely. All they wanted was a good fight. Before Fang Ying could have the time to think, how could Fang Haohen run faster than me, he heard Fang Haohen shouting, "Junior Martial Uncle," from behind. It turned out that youngest Martial Uncle was here. Fang Yingxiong finally stopped his running fat body with great difficulty and sprinting forward. If Junior Martial Uncle came, then there was nothing for him to do. Otherwise, if Junior Martial Uncle misunderstood that he wanted to steal his woman, then it would be big trouble. After all, who would be willing to have a handsome rival by the side of the woman they like? Bang! Only then did Fang Yen land with Yi Ro in his arms. "Put me down," Yiwen said. "You're hurt." "Put me down." Yi Ro became even more domineering. Ignoring him, Fang Yen looked at Chiba Baryoshi and said, "My wife and children are immature and have caused you trouble. I'm sorry. I'm afraid of losing and death, but I'm most afraid of retreating. I'll be there on time for the Battle of One Sword Peak. Don't worry." Fang Yen smiled at Chiba Baryoshi and walked back with Yi Ro in his arms. Fang Ying and Fang Haohen looked at each other and followed him cautiously. Chiba Baryoshi stood there, looking at the backs of Fang Yen and the others with a worried expression. Chiba Baryoshi and Qin Yin walked over, and Chiba Baryoshi said happily, "Father, you won again." Yes, his father won again. He had won countless times since he was old enough to understand things. He had witnessed some of the battles with his own eyes, but most of the battles had become stories and legends. His father was the sword god of Japan, a figure deified by Japanese warriors. Winning was a habit for him. So was Chiba Baryoshi. Chiba Baryoshi didn't respond. He just stood quietly in the cool breeze under the moonlight. "What are you worried about, master?" Qin Yin asked. Chiba Baryoshi was still a child after all, and Qin Yin was more mature and sharper. "I won, and Japan lost," Chiba Baryoshi said. "How can one person's victory offset the loss of a country?" "Father, master," Chiba Baryoshi and Qin Yin were confused. They didn't know why Chiba Baryoshi said that. If he won, it meant that Japan had won. Because he was the pride of Japan, one of the representatives of Japanese warriors. How could the Japanese have lost? "In Japan, they call me the sword god. Everywhere I go, they worship me," Chiba Baryoshi said in a low voice. He didn't feel very proud because of this. Chiba Baryoshi smiled and said, "Father, that's the supreme honor you earned with your own strength. You deserve it. Father has always been my goal, and also the goal of thousands of Japanese warriors." Chiba Baryoshi shook his head and said, "That's what I'm worried about. When they see me, they all keep quiet and worship me like a god. But that's not what I want. I want them to have the courage to draw their swords against me. In Japan, no one has the courage to draw their swords against me. In Huaxia, I've already met two. Even the two men who don't dare to look me in the eye have the determination to die," Chiba Baryoshi said. Japan lost. Chiba Baryoshi looked at his father with more love, and Qin Yin looked at his master with more respect. Chiba Baryoshi served the country and the people. The hatred of the country and the hatred of the family was the future of a martial artist. Even the man who was the Japanese sword god could not abandon all human emotions. He would love because he loved and hate because he hated. Now, he was worried about the young man's desire to die and the martial arts heritage of Japan. Chiba Baryoshi turned around and said, "The brave are fearless. Let's work hard together." Only then did Chiba Baryoshi and Qin Yin notice that there was a small hole in the back of Chiba Baryoshi's clothes. With their sharp eyes, Qin Yin and Chiba Baryoshi could see the dazzling red line. The two of them sucked in a cold breath at the same time. "Father, are you hurt?" Chiba Baryoshi cried in surprise. As far as he could remember, he had never seen his father get hurt. Never had. The sword god is still a human. How can a human not be hurt? Chiba Baryoshi's calm voice came. Rosefinch High School. In the courtyard of the villa. Take off your clothes, Fang Yan said. No, Yi Rou said. Take off your clothes. Yi Rou, have you noticed? When we talk, we have to say the same thing several times. Fang Yan looked at the unreasonable Yi Rou helplessly and said, I noticed. Fang Haohen raised his hand happily, feeling proud of his smart brain and wise eyes. Fang Ying slapped his head and scolded, You idiot, it has nothing to do with you. They are flirting, why are you getting involved? From now on, shut your stupid mouth. Yi Rou stared at Fang Yan with sharp eyes and said, Fang Yan, don't think you can take advantage of me because I'm hurt. You may not be my match in a fight. Who wants to fight with you? Fang Yan said angrily. You're hurt. You're bleeding. You were slapped by that old psycho from Chiba Baryoshi? I have to see where you're hurt so I can apply medicine for you. What does it have to do with you? Yi Rou said with disdain. She pushed Fang Yan away and said, Don't put your face too close to me. I'm afraid it will affect my appetite and aggravate my injury. Then she turned around and was about to leave. Yi Rou, stop the F***. Fang Yan shouted. He felt that his little universe was about to explode. What kind of woman is she? Is this kind of woman still a woman? Can you be affectionate just for once? Can you be humble for once? Can you be infinitely shy for once? Isn't it said that injured women are the most vulnerable? That old psycho from Chiba Baryoshi clearly slapped her, but why is she still so strong? Yi Rou suddenly turned around and shouted, Fang Yan, what did you just say? Fang Yan's heroic appearance suddenly disappeared, and he said timidly, I said please wait. Even if you want to leave, you have to take the medicine I gave you. He winked at Fang Yingying. Fang Yingying ran into the room and took out a bottle of powder from Junior Marshal Uncle's private collection. After thinking for a while, he took out 2 more bottles, then 3. I'll tell my mom what you just said, Yi Rou said. Fang Yan felt that this woman was too vengeful. Fang Yan gave the powder to Yi Rou and said, Apply half of it externally, and take the other half with water. You will be fine as long as all the clotted blood is drained out. Yi Rou hesitated for a while, grabbed the bottle, and turned around and walked into the darkness. Fang Yan walked her to the door of the small courtyard and sighed as he looked at Yi Rou's back. The two of them always used this strange way to get along. If they didn't quarrel or beat each other, they didn't know what to do. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen came over, and Fang Yingying said, Miss Yi saved us. If she hadn't gone in time, Fang Haohen and I wouldn't have been able to come back. She is a good person. Miss Yi didn't want to stay, because she was worried that she wouldn't have a place to sleep at night. Fang Haohen added. Fang Yan just remembered something, and turned around to look at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen with a sneer. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were scared, and their legs were trembling. Fang Yingying said hurriedly, Junior Marshal Uncle, I think I was hurt by the sword energy today. I'll go back and apply some medicine, I'm sleepy too. Fang Haohen was also quite smart, and he turned around to escape. Fang Yan quickly blocked in front of them, and both of his hands were flying, slapping Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen's heads nonstop, and scolded, You two idiots, leave the fighting to the women. Why did you run over there? You two uneducated guys, do you know how to write the word death? Chapter 244. Junior Marshal Uncle, don't fight. You can't fight anymore. Fang Yingying yelled while covering his head. You just called me an idiot. If I continue to fight now, I'll be a retard. If I had known earlier, I would have fought with the old monster of the Chiba army. Even if I was killed by him with a sword, I would still be proud if I died like this. Fang Yan sneered and said, You want to fight with the Chiba army with your mediocre skills? Others are fighting with their lives, but you're going to die. You just want to say that Miss Yi is better than us. Fang Yingying said anxiously. After saying that, he immediately realized what a stupid thing he had said. He hurriedly said, Of course, your way of thinking is completely correct. Who is Miss Yi? She is a first-class master in Huaxia. She is invincible in the world. Except for Junior Marshal Uncle, who can last 3 rounds with her. Fang Yan was too lazy to fight these 2 rascals anymore. He asked Fang Haohen to get water for him to wash his hands. These two guys hadn't washed their hair for a long time. Their hair was greasy, and Fang Yan's palms were covered with that sticky substance. What? Do you think being killed by the Chiba army is something to be proud of? Fang Yan looked at Fang Yingying and asked. I didn't mean that, Fang Yingying explained with a smile. In my beautiful imagination, of course, it would be more glorious if I killed the Chiba army. But we can't do it. Last time, Junior Martial Uncle said that he couldn't make a move when he saw him. I even laughed at Junior Martial Uncle in my heart for exaggerating and saying that the old guy was too powerful. Fang Yan couldn't help but slap Fang Yingying's head again and scolded, What right do you have to laugh at me in your heart? Can you judge more accurately than me with your greasy eyelids that can't see 3 meters away? Fang Yingying nodded again and again. He said the wrong thing again. This slap was worth it. Junior Martial Uncle is right. I had a little doubt before, but after I practiced it myself, I found that the old guy was just standing there casually. I didn't know where to attack him. Is this the master of the wall stage? Isn't he too powerful? Of course, young Martial Uncle's foresight is even sharper. Even though it was the first time he met him, he already knew everything about him. Fang Yan shook his head and said with a wry smile, If I was really that powerful, would you and Fang Haohen risk your life to fight him? Fang Yingxiong opened his mouth and said, We asked him to risk our lives because Fang Haohen and I felt that how could we use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? It's a waste of resources. Fang Haohen and I will get rid of him first, so that after Junior Martial Uncle defeats him, others will say that you are bullying the weak. It's not worth it. Fang Yan washed his hands in the basin that Fang Haohen brought over. He looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen seriously and said, I know that you are worried that I can't beat the Qinya army. You are worried that I will be injured or even die. So you two idiots went by yourselves. With your mediocre skills, wouldn't it be a dead end if you went? You haven't reached that level yet, so there is no way to know how powerful the Qinya army is. Even his disciple will be a rare opponent for you. You are afraid that I will be injured, afraid that I will die. Am I not afraid that you too will be injured? Am I not afraid that you too will die? This is my battle and my responsibility. Since he came to me, even if I die in battle, I will keep my promise. This has nothing to do with my personal honor or face. It is for the dignity of all the warriors in Huaxia. If I lose, there will be another person who will challenge me. If I die, there will be another person who will come out to avenge me. Fang Yan patted Fang Yingying on the shoulder and said, But I don't want the next person to be you, because I know that you will lose and die. You just need to live like this. Even if I am gone, you can still take care of my parents and the old drunkard for me. So, you are more valuable alive than dead. Don't do such stupid things in the future. Don't die so easily. Fang Yan turned and left, leaving Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen in a daze in the courtyard. Fang Haohen was emotional. His eyes were red and tears flowed out. He said in a choked voice, Fang Yingying, I want to kill those bastards. Why did they bully Junior Martial Uncle? Fang Yingying also cried. He looked even sadder than Fang Haohen. Fang Haohen looked at Fang Yingying and comforted him, Hero, don't worry. Junior Martial Uncle will be fine. His martial arts are so good that the old monster might not be able to defeat him. Fang Ying wiped his tears with his sleeves and said, Junior Martial Uncle used my clothes to wipe his hands. The water dripped onto my neck. It was still early winter in Huaqing, but winter in Yanjing was already extremely cold. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at the fewer leaves on the locust tree, and they felt better and better. After a while, it should be snowing in Beijing, right? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were both from the south. It was Jiang Qin's first time walking out of Huaqing. Yuan Lin spent most of her time in Huaqing, apart from occasionally accompanying her parents to the north in spring and autumn. So, the two of them had actually never seen real snow. So, they had been looking forward to the arrival of the first snow of the year. They were looking forward to making snowmen in the snow, having snowball fights, and even hugging the person they liked in the snow. Jiang Qin was wearing a white training suit, while Yuan Lin was wearing a black one. The slim and soft training suit outlined the girl's figure extremely well, causing the two boys next to them to keep peeking at them. The two boys were Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's classmates, and they could be regarded as fellow apprentices. After Mao Xianping, who became famous after successfully training Xia Tian, retired from the music academy, he specially took a practice room in the school to train his disciples. Before Xia Tian sent Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin here, there were already two guys who were one step ahead of him. The tall and thin guy was called Guanu, the son of the famous domestic film and television star, Gu Qingyun. He inherited the excellent genes of his parents and was very handsome. The other boy, who looked very gentle and elegant with glasses, was called Huang Yida. He usually looked very low-key, but he always had a superior arrogance. No one knew what his family background was. An old man with slicked back hair was lying on a chair with his eyes slightly closed, looking like he was about to fall asleep. Jiang Qin's body was sitting in front of a guzheng, his body slightly leaning forward, his fingers gently fiddling with the guzheng. The sound of the guzheng was clear and pleasant. "Stop!" Mao Xianping suddenly opened his eyes and shouted loudly. Jiang Qin quickly stopped and looked at Mr. Mao Xianping helplessly. She knew that she had played something wrong again. Mr. Mao Xianping was very strict with his apprentices, and he treated Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin equally. He did not care about their feelings when he reprimanded them. "Jiang Qin, do you know where you went wrong?" Mao Xianping jumped up from the chair, walked to Jiang Qin and asked. Jiang Qin thought for a moment and said, "Teacher, I don't know." If you said you didn't know, the teacher would be angry. If you answered wrong, the teacher would be even angrier. Therefore, Jiang Qin chose an answer that would not make the teacher angry. "What song did you play?" "Zen Heart of Clouds and Water." "What is Zen Heart of Clouds and Water?" The sound of the guzheng was like the gurgling of water, the sparse shadow of the bamboo forest, and the reflection of the spring stone. From the sound of the guzheng, we need to understand the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. I know that you are a new student, so I don't ask you to play the great Buddha Dharma and great freedom. But tell me, where are your clouds? Where is the water? There are no clouds and no water. How can it be called Zen Heart of Clouds and Water? Jiang Qin looked ashamed and said, "Mr. Mao, I'm sorry. I was too anxious." Mao Xianping's face softened a little and he shouted, "Guanu, give us a demonstration." Guanu walked to Jiang Qin and said with a smile, "Mr. Mao, don't be angry. Junior sister has just come here, and it's already very good for her to achieve such a result. When I first came here, I was not as good as them. At that time, you were so angry that you hit me with a stick. Have you forgotten?" Guanu looked at Jiang Qin again and said, "Junior sister, don't be nervous. The teacher is strict with you because he has too high expectations for you. If it were an ordinary student, it would be very good if he could learn the skill of plucking and know the whole music score in this period of time. How dare I ask him to play a complete song?" Jiang Qin was very grateful to Guanu for helping her out. She gave the chair to Guanu and said with a smile, "Thank you." Guanu smiled and sat down in front of the guzheng. After adjusting the rhythm of his heart, he gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid qi, and then his fingers gently stroked the strings of the guzheng, and a beautiful tone jumped out. It had to be said that Guanu was indeed a bit talented in guzheng. The room was very quiet, and everyone was listening carefully. You could see the clouds and water, see the harmony of the clouds and water, and hear the solemn Buddha voice. At the end of the song, everyone applauded warmly. Bao Xianping pointed to Guanu and said, "There are some flaws. Clouds and water flow slowly, not too fast. If you use too much force, it will not be beautiful." Guanu quickly stood up and said gratefully, "Thank you for your teaching." Bao Xianping looked at Jiang Qin and asked, "Do you understand?" "Understood." Jiang Qin nodded. Mao Xianping was very satisfied with his disciple's studious attitude and said, "It's good that you understand. The ancients pay attention to having a well-thought-out plan. If you have wind and clouds in your heart, then the music you play will be able to create a storm. You are very talented, and I hope you can go further on this path." "Thank you, teacher." Jiang Qin sincerely thanked him. Mao Xianping waved his hand and said, "Okay, go eat." After Mao Xianping left, the students began to pack up their things and went to the bathroom to take a shower and change their clothes. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin changed into sweaters and down jackets and walked out, Guan Yu and Huang Yida were already waiting at the door. Guan Yu stood up and took the initiative to greet the two girls. He said, "I just discussed with Ida. Although we are brothers and sisters, we haven't even had a chance to have a meal together after being together for so long. Teacher must be very sad if he knows that our relationship is so estranged. It's me and Ida who didn't do a good job. Two little sisters, how about giving me some face and having a meal together today?" Chapter 245. When school reopened, it was normal for new classmates to gather together for a meal. When Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just entered middle school, Yuan Lin, the rich little girl, took 6 girls in her dormitory to eat at Pizza Hut. A meal that cost a few hundred yuan was really not a negligible amount of money for a middle school student. According to the relationship between the teacher and the teacher, the relationship between Jiang Qin, Yuan Lin, Huang Yida, and Guan Yu was closer than that of their former classmates. Because the 4 of them were disciples of teacher Mao Xianping. They were not only classmates but also fellow apprentices. In the future, they should help and take care of each other when they entered society. One must know that in the current entertainment circle, the proportion of students who graduated from the 2 famous schools, Shangying and China Film, was extremely high. They hugged each other, and there were many small circles in the big circle. It was easy to become popular by helping each other and hyping each other. Guan Yu was the senior apprentice brother, so he naturally had the responsibility and obligation to organize the meal. Moreover, he was very good at talking, and he even brought up teacher Mao Xianping. If Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin still refused at this time, it was really unreasonable and inexplicable. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other, and Jiang Qin said with a smile, "Okay, this should be done." "My treat. What do you want to eat, little sister?" Huang Yida put on a cool face, and his forthright manner when he spoke was very likable. "It doesn't matter what we eat," Jiang Qin said with a smile. "However, we have to invite teacher Mao. Just now, senior apprentice brother Gua said that this is our first gathering. If we don't invite teacher Mao to such a meaningful gathering, how sad will he be?" "Invite the teacher?" Guan Yu and Huang Yida had a look of rejection. "Who would want to eat with the teacher?" "We like to eat with the teacher," Yuan Lin said happily. The eyes of the 2 girls became bright. The teacher they liked to eat with was called Fang Yan. "I'll make the call." After Jiang Qin said that, he took out his phone from his pocket and dialed Mao Xianping's number. Mao Xianping had just separated from his students. He was a little surprised to receive a call from Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were recommended by Xiachen. He valued Xiachen a lot, and he valued Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin as well. After listening to Jiang Qin's words, Mao Xianping smiled and thanked him, but he still refused the students' invitation to dinner. He was a very famous musician in the country and had endless social engagements every day. Tonight's dinner had been arranged a week ago. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Qin put his mobile phone into his small bag. He looked at Guan Yu and said, "Senior brother Gua, teacher Mao has no time tonight. Ask us out next time. Then let's eat first." Guan Yu looked regretful, but he was overjoyed in his heart. "That's not good," said Jiang Qin. "Since teacher Mao said next time, let's wait until next time. Yuan Lin and I are going to meet a friend. We made an appointment in advance." Yuan Lin nodded repeatedly. "Senior brothers, I'm sorry." The 2 girls jumped away. Guan Yu and Huang Yida stood in the same place and looked at their backs in a daze. "What a smart little girl," Guan Yu said with a smile. "She's young, but she has a lot of ideas. She refused us and left us speechless. This is treating us like wolves." Huang Yida said with a bad face, "Teacher Mao doesn't have time, but they don't have time? Teacher Mao isn't here, and they don't even have the guts to have a meal with us?" Guan Yu looked at Huang Xianping with a smile and said, "Are you a wolf?" "What about you?" Huang Yida asked. "The revolution has not yet succeeded. Comrades still need to work hard." The 2 waved their hands and walked in opposite directions, one on the left and one on the right. Dead leaves fell, and a thick layer of leaves piled up on the ground. Not knowing whether the cleaners were too lazy or deliberately adding a touch of romance to the autumn, no one swept the leaves into the trash can. Therefore, the campus couples held hands and stepped on the leaves, making clicking sounds. Every step made people feel happy and joyful. The naughty girl ran on the leaves, and with a kick of her toes, countless leaves flew all over the sky. Jiang Qin also liked to kick the leaves. Every step she took, she stepped deeply, and then kicked the leaves in front of her toes out. It was as if she wanted to kick out the troubles in her heart. You don't like them? Yuan Lin took Jiang Qin's hand and walked quietly on her right side. What? Jiang Qin was thinking about her own thoughts and didn't hear her friend's words clearly. Yuan Lin was a little angry and raised her voice and said, I asked you if you don't like Guanu and Huang Yida. Jiang Qin thought about it and said, It's not that I don't like them, but it's not that I like them. You probably don't like them? Otherwise, why did people say that you refused to have a meal with your classmates? Yuan Lin, you didn't notice that when you were playing the zither, Huang Yida looked at you with a strange look? I noticed it too. When you were playing the zither, Guanu looked at you with a strange look. It was as if he blinked his eyelashes and there would be tenderness and honey falling out. I thought I was the only one who had such a feeling. It turned out that you also had. Jiang Qin looked at Yuan Lin and said, We are still young, don't think about love. Since we chose to learn classical instruments, since teacher Fang Yan and sister Xia Tian have such high expectations for us, then we must do our best and not let them down. Yuan Lin sneered and said, Teacher Fang Yan doesn't have any expectations for us. He said that if we can't hold on, we can pack up and come back at any time. It's not necessary to become a musician. But Sister Xia Tian has great expectations for us. She is still learning the zither, and she works harder than us. If the object of love is Fang Yan, you won't say that you are too young to fall in love, right? You damn girl, I'll tear your mouth. Jiang Qin angrily rushed towards Yuan Lin. The two girls played in the leaves for a while, and then walked side by side again, panting. It's strange, Jiang Qin said. When I was at school, I always felt that those boys were too naive and not as mature as teacher Fang Yan. Now that I'm here, I feel that Guanu and Huang Yida are really boring to put on airs all day. I think so too. Yuan Lin nodded. Why do I always find them unpleasant? I want to rush up and beat them up. Alas. The two girls sighed softly. I don't know when I can see teacher Fang Wei again, Jiang Qin said. It's the first time I've left home, and it's so far away. I really miss Mom's braised pork, Dad's dumplings, and Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang said that he is from Yanjing. When the students are on holiday, he will come to see us, Yuan Lin comforted. Mr. Fang said that he should solve problems with his head in the future. You did a good job just now, Yuan Lin said. What does he use to solve problems? Fists. The two girls looked at each other and then laughed. Jiang Qin stopped talking, and Yuan Lin also became silent. Hand in hand, they walked towards the bustling streets. That way, they could show that they were not too lonely in this city. Number 3. Lu Jing, go and stop number 3. Number 28 is going to make a layup, stop him. Huang Haoren, go. In order to cultivate students' moral, intellectual, and physical development, the school often held some competitions. The current one was the Rosefinch Senior High School Interschool Basketball Competition. This was the first round of the preliminary competition. According to the rules, the first, second, and third years would each send a team to compete for the title of the school champion. Fang Yan ran to the office to draw lots, but he drew the 9th class and the 11th class, which had the highest basketball level, together. The 11th class was a special enrollment class. What was a special enrollment class? It meant that the students had a special skill and could be admitted to Rosefinch Secondary with extra points. Some were good at drawing, some were talented in music, and some were good at calligraphy. Of course, most of them were good at sports, because during the recruitment test, if you say you can draw well, then you have to draw well. If you said you were talented in music, then you had to shout. If you said you were good at calligraphy, then you had to write a beautiful essay. However, if you said you were good at sports, as long as you were strong enough, then you had extra points. As a result, several big guys and one 8-meter-tall men appeared in Class 11. When they walked together, it was a beautiful scene in the school. It was a tough game. Class 9 didn't have any good basketball players to begin with, and they couldn't miss school activities either. The team of 5 was barely made up by Fang Yan. The only substitute was only able to make up the team because of his height. He said he couldn't play basketball, but Fang Yan didn't believe him. Or rather, he didn't want to believe him. He tried it on the court, and when he got nervous, he ran away with the ball in his hands. Fang Yan had to believe it. It was only the third quarter, and the score was already more than 30 points. 58-12. The 9th class 21 points were almost all scored by Huang Haoren alone. He wasn't tall, and he was very short-sighted, but his three-point shot was very beautiful. Huang Haoren got the ball again, sprinted, and jumped. Fang Yan clenched his fists. He knew that as long as Huang Haoren had a chance to get the ball, he would be able to get the 3 points. Although Fang Yan knew that they were going to lose this game, he didn't want it to end here. He could teach anything, but he would teach his students to give up. Huang Haoren, come on. The cheerleaders finally got a little bit of spirit. They were also stunned by the 11th class. The gap was getting bigger and bigger, and their voices were getting smaller and smaller. Finally, there was no sound. If it weren't for Fang Yan's strict discipline, they wouldn't want to watch anymore. Huang Haoren raised his arm, and his wrist gently hooked, bang. A giant appeared in front of him and slapped the ball on Huang Haoren's face. But Huang Haoren's body fell on the solid concrete floor, and he didn't move. He looked at Tiger Li and said, "I hit your head, not because you injured your classmate. Of course, I am really angry about you breaking the rules and injuring your classmate. If you say you didn't mean it, I believe you. However, even if you are playing against each other, because of your foul, a classmate fell to the ground and got injured. Shouldn't you go over and help him up and apologize? He is not my teammate, he is your classmate, not your enemy. Even if you are standing on the same court, it doesn't mean that you are life and death enemies. Because of your foul, a classmate is lying on the ground bleeding. You are drinking Coke and joking with your classmate. Because the person lying on the ground is not you, the person who is bleeding is not you, so you can have a clear conscience and act without any scruples? I was angry and hit you because of this reason, not because you said it was an unintentional foul that caused a student to get injured. Mr. Fang, what you said is too much." A middle-aged man wearing a Rockets jersey was sitting under a tree. He was dismissive of Fang Yan's words. It is normal to get injured in a basketball game. Even in the NBA, don't big-name stars often get injured and have to have surgery? They're still kids, so it's understandable that they don't think about things as comprehensively. If you use your own standards to demand things from them and then use your identity as a teacher to beat someone up, do you believe that I'll go to the school and report that you're physically punishing students? The person who spoke was Gu Sini, the homeroom teacher of Class 11. He is also a basketball enthusiast and usually fights with people. From his outfit today, it can be seen that he should be a die-hard supporter of the Rockets. Gu Sini doesn't like Fang Yan very much. The first reason is naturally because of jealousy. They were all the homeroom teachers of the Year 1 students. Why was it that they were unknown while the newcomer, Fang Yan, stood out from the rest and his name was known by everyone in the school? Moreover, the school leaders asked Fang Yan to give a lecture to the first-year students. This is undoubtedly a slap in the face of all the first-year teachers. In the eyes of the school leaders, he is far better than the teachers. What was even more depressing was that the total score of Class 9 was not that far behind that of Class 11, but after Fang Yan's arrival, Class 1's Chinese and literature became the first in the whole grade, even surpassing Class 1, the top class. Their scores in other subjects also improved significantly, and their overall score was ranked in the top 5 in the whole school. The school leaders said at the teachers' meeting that it is not just the number of the class that is ranked at the bottom. Look at Class 9, isn't it a good example? The faces of the homeroom teachers at the back of Class 9 darkened on the spot. It is not that they don't work hard. They also want their students to be in the top 3 in the whole grade. However, how can it be so easy? When you are working hard, others are also working hard, okay? The homeroom teachers in front of Class 9 looked even more embarrassed. What does this mean? At that time, the students were divided according to their grades. Now the students at the back of the line are in front of them. Doesn't this mean that they are incompetent? At that time, Fang Yen was also sitting at the meeting, and he could feel the murderous look in everyone's eyes. The Norwegian fishing boat returned to the harbor, but the sardines caught by the fishermen were already dead. Only the sardines caught by Hans were still alive. It turned out that Hans put a few catfish, the natural enemy of the sardines, into the transport trough together with the sardines. Because catfish eat meat, the sardines became nervous after being put into the trough. In order to avoid being eaten by their natural enemy, the sardines desperately swam, thus preserving their strong vitality, so they survived. If the other teachers are compared to sardines, then Fang Yen is the catfish in the fish trough. The school leaders hope that Fang Yen can stir up the competition in the school even more, and Fang Yen does not mind being such a catfish. If every teacher thinks about how to improve the academic performance of the students will benefit in the end. This is also what Fang Yen wants to see. Gu Xini hates Fang Yen more than the other teachers, because his uncle was implicated in Fang Yan's incident and was transferred. Gu Xini's uncle, Gu Yunfan, is the logistics director of Rosefinch Secondary, which is the most lucrative position in the school. This is because when Fang Yen entered the school, he assigned Fang Yen a utility room with a leaky roof. In fact, Fang Yen really did not take this matter seriously, and he has never even seen Gu Yunfan. However, after a series of power struggles and changes in ownership, Rosefinch High is now owned by the former vice principal, Lu Chaoga. After Lu Chaoga left Rosefinch, Fang Yen became Lu Chaoga's spokesperson in the school. Moreover, there are rumors that Lu Chaoga is the mysterious woman behind Fang Yen. Therefore, Gu Yunfan's position as the logistics director is not suitable. After the school leader's research and adjustment, Gu Yunfan is now the vice chairman of the school's education committee. A position with a low level, low salary, and almost no authority. Gu Yunfan is holding back his anger in his heart and scolds Fang Yen several times at home. Gu Xini is Gu Yunfan's nephew, and he can enter Rosefinch because of Gu Yunfan's support. Without such a big backer, his heart naturally hates Fang Yen. Fang Yen feels Gu Xini's hostility towards him, but he thinks that he is too good to be pleasing to the eye. Who asked him to be the natural enemy of sardines? Chapter 247. Tangqing made a three-pointer from the distance. Swish. The ball went in. Tangqing dribbled the ball past people. He passed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ball went in. Tangqing jumped up and dunked. Two people jumped up from the left and right sides to intercept. Li Hu roared, "Don't even think about it." He jumped up from the front and used his strong body to hit Tangqing. Clang. The ball went into the basket fiercely. Li Hu's body was knocked to the ground. But until this time, Tangqing's body landed lightly on the ground. He flipped his hair back in a carefree and unrestrained manner, not even a drop of sweat falling down. This made Tangqing feel a little regretful. If he shook his hair to shake off a few drops of sweat, the effect would be better. Of course, for him, this was enough. Tangqing! 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 The cheers of the students almost overturned the court. Tangqing's name resounded throughout the campus. There were also countless students rushing towards the court. Of course, most of them were girls. Tangqing was originally Rosefinch's most handsome boy, but he was usually low-key. He rarely showed his talent in any aspect. Today, under the pressure of Fang Yen, he ran to play basketball. Then, the girl's blood and passion were instantly ignited. Handsome facial features, strong body, extreme speed when running, elegance when dribbling the ball, dominance when doing a slam dunk. God, how could there be such a handsome boy? They fainted. The girls felt that they had difficulty breathing and lost all their strength. Tangqing was originally unwilling to play. As a warrior who practiced internal martial arts, he felt that playing basketball with these guys was bullying. This was also the reason why he was absent from this game. Before, Fang Yen did not think of letting Tangqing play because Tangqing would lose his competitive spirit when he played. He could win the whole game by himself. The existence of other teammates was meaningless. At that time, this competition would become his own game, and it would be quite boring for the others to play. However, after Huang Haoren got injured, Fang Yan decided to teach those who didn't know how to respect others a lesson. If they don't reflect on their actions, they don't deserve the glory of victory. Sure enough, after Tang Cheng left the stage, the situation became one-sided. Li Hu fell to the concrete floor under the blue net. The basketball fell from the blue net and landed heavily on his body. Li Hu gasped for air, feeling his heart beating fiercely. He looked at Tang Cheng with fear in his eyes. It was too terrifying. It was too terrifying. He couldn't stop him if he wanted to, couldn't catch up to him if he wanted to, couldn't jump high if he wanted to, and couldn't win if he wanted to. This was the first time he felt so powerless on the court. They were like a group of children, and Tang Cheng was like a giant among a group of children. Although they looked stronger and taller than Tang Cheng, they were not on the same level as Tang Cheng. Tang Cheng alone was enough. Tang Cheng did it alone. This was the thought of everyone in the stadium. When the ball was in their hands, Tang Cheng sprinted and the ball was in his hands. Then he ran quickly and left them in the dust. Finally, he scored successfully. When the ball was in Tang Cheng's hands, Tang Cheng ran quickly. They couldn't catch up with his speed at all, and then they watched him score successfully. In the last 5 minutes of the third quarter, Tang Cheng scored 39 points alone. He almost didn't waste time. He took the ball and ran, grabbed the ball to attack, didn't look at the long shot, and turned and ran after the shot. When Li Hu and the others were still staring at the trajectory of the basketball and praying that the ball wouldn't go in, he had already run to the side to defend. The only thing the Class 11 players could do was to waste more time when they were serving or dribbling the ball. They wanted to finish the third quarter as soon as possible. It was too exciting, and they felt that they couldn't bear it. Moreover, as Fang Yan said, after Tang Cheng played, the Class 11 players didn't get a single point. Except when they were serving, they didn't even have a chance to touch the basketball. The muscles on Gu Sini's face twitched, and he roared angrily, "This is cheating. It's cheating with Kung Fu." Fang Yan sneered and said, "You don't even know what Kung Fu is, and you say it's cheating? Ordinary people can't do it at all. Yes, Kung Fu is to make ordinary people superhuman." Fang Yan said, "Strengthening the body is also Kung Fu. Improve your speed, exercise your physique, strengthen your jumping ability. As long as Tang Cheng doesn't foul, everything he does on the court is reasonable. If possible, I hope that every player in the Chinese football team knows Kung Fu. Then, they can go out of Asia to the world and win every World Cup. At that time, will the opponents from other countries say that it's a foul just because they know Kung Fu? Unreasonable." Gu Sini left angrily. He didn't want to watch the game anymore. Fang Yan looked at the Class 9 students around Tang Cheng thoughtfully. It seems that it's time to let them develop morally, intellectually, and physically. In the principal's office, Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Fang Yan and said, "It's just a game, the students are injured, it's not good." "It's because the students were injured, that's why I'm so angry," Fang Yan explained. "Principal Zhang, you know, I'm not a stingy man. Even though Director Gu assigned me a utility room, I never held a grudge against him. I didn't expect that they would hold a grudge against me. Isn't this unfair to me? How can there be absolute fairness in this world?" Zhang Xiaofeng said with a smile. "Tell me, what do you want to do?" "I want to change the morning self-study time to sports training," Fang Yan said. Zhang Xiaofeng pondered for a moment and said, "The school has 2 PE classes every week and there is a break every morning. Principal Zhang, 2 PE classes a week is absolutely not enough. It doesn't improve the student's physique. Everyone should be lazy during the 20-minute break, and it's easy to be perfunctorily passed by them. What's your idea?" "I want to take them to learn Tai Chi," Fang Yan said. "Tai Chi has a good effect of strengthening the body, and the movements are gentle, neither too fast nor too slow. It won't let the students do difficult movements and cause strain. It can dredge the meridians, eliminate stress, concentrate the spirit, and improve the student's learning ability." Zhang Xiaofeng thought for a while and said, "I can't promise you, because it's too risky. Even if I'm the principal of the school, I don't have the right to change the students' learning subjects at will. However, you can try it in Class 9. If the effect is really obvious, we will report it to the leader and promote it to the whole school. Thank you, Principal Zhang, Fang Yan said. This was the purpose of his coming. He didn't think about implementing it to the whole school at once. There was always a gradual process of doing things. After Fang Yan left, Zhang Xiaofeng sat on the chair and thought for a while. He called the secretary in and said, "Please invite the vice principals to my office to discuss the job transfer of Comrade Gu Yunfan." Gu Yunfan secretly held a grudge against Fang Yan. Gu Sini, because he didn't like Fang Yan, actually took the initiative to provoke the students of the two classes. This made Zhang Xiaofeng very dissatisfied. Presumably, Fang Yan also had a lot of anger in his heart. Although Fang Yan didn't put forward any suggestions on how to deal with Gu Yunfan, it seemed that nothing had happened. However, since Lu Chaoga put him in this position, he would help Fang Yan solve some unnecessary troubles. Fang Yan said that he wasn't a stingy person. However, in Zhang Xiaofeng's heart, he didn't believe Fang Yan's words. Where there are people, there is Jianghu. Where there is Jianghu, there is fighting. The school was no exception. The next day after the game, during the students' morning reading time, Fang Yan took the students to the playground to run. Fang Yan's plan was to run for 10 minutes to exercise, and then take the students to learn Tai Chi in the rest of the time. Fang Yan, who was dressed in white, took the students in white to run and practice Tai Chi, which once again became a hot topic of discussion in the school. One tael of gold for one incense. The best incense was more expensive than gold. The office was spacious but also simple. There wasn't even a desk, a chair, or even a bookcase. Most of the space was blank. However, in a copper stove in the corner of the room, spices that were more expensive than gold were burning. Chapter 248. Are you saying that you and Chaoga aren't in that kind of relationship? Grandma looked disappointed. She had only taken 2 bites of the porridge in her bowl, and she had already lost her appetite. Putting down her bowl and chopsticks, she looked at Fang Yan eagerly, waiting for him to explain. No. Fang Yan shook his head. He was having a good time himself. He used to be afraid that his grandpa would pull him into the study to test him on strange knowledge and talk about principles that he would never understand. After Fang Yan became a teacher himself, he no longer had to worry about that. Grandpa would still test him on some obscure knowledge and talk about principles that would never go out of style. However, he no longer had any feelings of rejection or fear. If he could answer the questions, he would answer them properly. If he couldn't, he would humbly ask Grandpa for advice. He no longer hated the principles that he had disdained before, and he could even chew on some of them. Fang Yan reflected on the question carefully and tried to find the answer. The answer he came up with surprised even himself. He had grown up. In the past, when he faced his grandfather, he avoided it with the mentality of a child of the younger generation. Every kid was afraid of their elders. Now that he was facing his grandfather, he was interacting and treating him as an equal adult. "How can I not be?" said his grandma. "Chaoga is such a good girl, and I like the two of you from the bottom of my heart. Do you not like her, or does she not like you? If she doesn't like you, you can try harder. A good girl is afraid of a clingy man. That's how your grandpa got me." Lu Wang, who was eating his porridge, choked. After coughing violently a few times, he said to his wife in dissatisfaction, "Let's talk about the children. Why are you bringing up our old stuff?" Grandma was very angry that Grandpa had called the old story of how he had pursued her in the past. She took away all the dishes on the table and said, "I'm just giving an example. Why are you so sensitive about it? The things in the past were all old seeds and grains. But today, the old seeds and grains were not going to serve you. I'll be taking these appetizers away. You can let the new sesame seeds and new grains serve you." "You old woman." Although Lu Gong had a stubborn temper, he was extremely tolerant and considerate to his wife. He didn't smile at outsiders, but he accompanied his wife to go grocery shopping every day. Now that his wife was angry, he also realized that he had said something wrong and said, "Why should we get involved in the affairs of young people?" Lu Gong was very cunning. He changed the topic to Fang Yen and Lu Chaoge. Sure enough, his grandmother was fooled and said, "Can I not get involved? I've always treated Chaoge as my granddaughter-in-law, but she's gone just like that. Who wouldn't be angry after encountering something like this?" She then stared at Fang Yen and said, "I wasn't before, but that doesn't mean I won't be in the future. You're not married, and neither is little Lu. Just as well. If you don't like her, I'll have to talk to you. You don't even like Chaoge? What kind of person are you looking for?" After a pause, his grandmother looked at Fang Yen in horror and said, "You can't possibly like that female student, right?" "What female student?" Fang Yen was surprised. "Don't try to fool me. I've asked around. It's said that you have a good relationship with a girl whose surname is Qin. Fang Yen, let me tell you, she's still a child. You're a teacher now, and a teacher should act like a model. Don't hurt others or yourself." Fang Yen wanted to bang his head against the wall and said, "Grandma, I know who the female student you're talking about is. But I just treat her as my student, and she treats me as her teacher. We have a very pure teacher-student relationship. Was it really like that?" Fang Yen felt a little guilty. Moreover, there had been no news from Qin Etian since that day when he disappeared. Was she doing well? Fang Yen felt a little sad. "Is it really like that?" His grandmother asked suspiciously. "I heard it from someone else's mouth. I heard that you two have a scandal. I also have a scandal with Lu Chaoge. You must have heard it too, right?" Fang Yen said grumpily. "I heard it. Your grandpa and I thought you two were a couple because of the scandal," his grandmother said. "Besides, you're living in the same house. Why can't you be a couple? I'll ask Chaoge to come to our house for dinner tomorrow, and I'll talk to her," his grandmother said. "You don't have to worry about it." Fang Yen felt even more depressed. How could he not care that his grandmother was looking for a wife for him? However, he wouldn't argue with his grandmother. He just needed to make things clear. Why should he make things too intense and hurt the old lady's feelings? After dinner, Fang Yen ran away in a panic. He was no longer afraid of his grandpa, but of his grandmother, who kept urging him to solve the problem of his life. Every morning, he would take his students for a morning run, do Tai Chi, go to class on time, go to Qingfeng Tea House for tea, and go to his grandpa's house for dinner. Fang Yan's life was peaceful and comfortable. As the days went by, it was hard to notice the passage of time. If it weren't for the fact that the decisive battle between Fang Yen and the Chiba army was getting closer and closer, Bailey Lu came. When Fang Yen came back from his grandma's house for dinner, he was standing in the yard waiting for him. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen, the two cowards, were accompanying him. Fang Yen didn't want to ask him how he avoided the security at the school gate and accurately found the courtyard where he lived. It was not a difficult thing for people like them. He was just curious about why Bailey Lu, who had been beaten by him last time, now took the initiative to wander in front of him. Seeing Fang Yen come in, Bailey Lu grinned. His hair was cut, and his clothes were changed. He no longer looked like a savage who ran out of Shenangjia, and he didn't have the disgusting sour smell on him. He looked fresh and bright when he smiled, and he looked like a very attractive man. However, he still had those annoying big mustaches. Bailey Lu saw Fang Yen come back and said, "You're finally back." Fang Yen looked him up and down and said, "You've cut your hair and changed your clothes? I don't remember that you won against me last time. Going back on your word is not what people in Jianghu do, right? Last time, I stood on the top of the mountain and shouted at you for a long time. I asked you to go up and fight with me for 300 rounds. You didn't go up. So, I won," Bailey Lu explained. "You've become shameless." Fang Yen sighed softly in his heart. How could a disciple of a famous martial arts school become such a rascal? "I learned it from you," Bailey Lu said with a proud face. "After learning it, I found that being a rascal is much more relaxing and pleasant than being a good man who keeps his word. I've decided to take this kind of rascal route in the future." Fang Yen was too lazy to talk to this guy who followed him and ate his dust. He asked, "Say it? What are you doing here?" "I'm here to challenge you," Bailey Lu said. Fang Yan's eyes turned cold and he said, "Are you serious? I'm standing in front of you. How can I not be serious? Before Bailey Lu's voice died away, he had already rushed towards Fang Yen. Since he wanted to be a rascal, he would be a rascal to the end. Attacking first without greeting was the style of a rascal. Bailey Lu did not bring his big wine pot this time, but his fists were waving vigorously. A pair of iron fists were clenched and smashed towards Fang Yan's head. One punch could probably smash Fang Yan's head into pieces. Fang Yan also took the initiative to rush towards Bailey Lu. He did not use the advantage of Tai Chi to overcome hardness with softness. Instead, he met force with force and wanted to send Bailey Lu flying with a heavy punch. Boom, their fists collided. Bailey Lu's feet did not move, but the shoes under his feet rolled up the blue stone bricks on the ground. The bricks flew in the air, as if there was something on the ground that pushed them up with great force. Clang! Bailey Lu's back knocked down several pots of flowers and plants. Fang Yan's body trembled as he watched. This guy had to beat him up. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain to Lu Chaoga, the woman who was crazy about flowers. Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan, who was standing in the same place and looking at him angrily. He laughed wildly and said, "That was fun. Let's do it again." As soon as his voice fell, his body rushed towards Fang Yan again. Fang Yan was not polite. His body rushed straight towards Bailey Lu. Bailey Lu's fist hit Fang Yan's chest, and Fang Yan's hook hit Bailey Lu's stomach. Although Bailey Lu had the title of Divine Fist, his strength was not as good as Fang Yan's. Bailey Lu's body retreated, and Fang Yan closed in step by step. Seeing that Bailey Lu was about to retreat to the corner of the courtyard wall, Fang Yan kicked out with lightning speed. Clang! Bailey Lu's body hit the courtyard wall firmly. Kacha, kacha. The dust on the courtyard wall shook off, and then a large number of cracks appeared. Fang Yan's fist was still pressed on Bailey Lu's stomach, and he pushed back heavily. The courtyard wall collapsed, and a big hole appeared. Bailey Lu was actually punched out of the courtyard by Fang Yan. Dust flew, and even the plants on the wall fell. Bailey Lu fell to the ground, and the bricks and various green plants that fell later buried his body. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan both gasped at the same time. This was a school. Was it really okay for them to fight like this? Fang Yan did not stop. He lifted the well cover in the courtyard with both hands and threw it at the stone mountain where Bailey Lu was lying. Boom, the well cover was too heavy, and it crushed a lot of bricks and plants. If it was an ordinary person, his bones would have been crushed. This big well cover was on the top, which was equivalent to burying Bailey Lu alive. Chapter 249. The pile of stones was silent, as if Bailey Lu had been killed by the heavy manhole cover. However, Fang Yan was still vigilant. Even Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan did not believe that Bailey Lu had been killed by Junior Martial Uncle just like that. They stood behind Fang Yan and looked at the movement under the pile of stones from a distance. Boom! It was earth-shattering. The patio cover on the top suddenly bounced up and flew high into the sky with the whistling sound of the wind. The bricks that covered Bailey Lu's body also flew up, entangling and hitting each other. A huge body stood up straight from the ground. With a kick of his feet, he jumped high into the air. Bailey Lu did not let them down. He jumped very high and grabbed the patio cover that was about to fall from the highest point. He held the patio cover with both hands and moved his feet in the air. He rushed towards Fang Yan, who was standing in the yard. He flew over the courtyard wall and held the patio cover with both hands. He rode on the clouds and rode on the mist with great momentum. The patio cover was his weapon of attack. He was going to use the cover to kill Fang Yan directly. Whoosh! The wind was howling, and the broken branches on the ground were blown up. Fallen leaves fluttered in the air like countless butterflies dancing around Fang Yan. Fang Yan stood where he was and prepared to take this attack head-on. Fang Yan, go to hell! Bailey Lu roared. He took advantage of the situation from above. He swung the patio cover and smashed it hard towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan punched upwards with both of his fists, and both of his fists landed on the manhole cover. Clang! Fang Yan's body became shorter for no reason. The stone slabs under his feet could not withstand the strong gravity and were crushed into powder by him. Not only that, under the constant pressure of Bailey Lu in the sky, Fang Yan's body continued to drill into the soil. Now, he was up to his knees. Fang Yan's 2 heavy punches landed on the patio cover, and 2 large holes appeared on the cover. His hands were pierced through the holes as if he had made a natural chain for himself. Bailey Lu was suspended in the air, and his whole body was pressed against the patio cover. He wanted to punch Fang Yan's whole body into the soil. Exerting all his strength, he found it impossible to do so. Therefore, he swung his fist and smashed it against the patio cover. Fang Yan was a nail, and his fist was a nail. He was going to hammer the nails into the soil with a hammer. Fang Yan retracted his fist and punched again. Clang! Both of them swung their fists at the patio at the same time. The patio cover instantly shattered into tiny stones, and the place where they punched was also smashed into stone powder. Fang Yan's body sank again, but Bailey Lu's body was punched into the sky. Fang Yan threw the half-stone cover in his hand toward Bailey Lu in the sky. Then, he exerted his strength and his whole body bounced up from the deep pit. He tiptoed and flew toward Bailey Lu, who was about to land. Clang! Fang Yan kicked Bailey Lu away. Bang! Bailey Lu punched Fang Yan's stomach, and Fang Yan's body flew into the air. Crack! Fang Yan lifted Bailey Lu's body and smashed him against a sweet-scented osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The osmanthus tree broke, and Bailey Lu's body fell to the ground with most of the branches. Bailey Lu's face was swollen, and his eyes were like panda eyes. There was a big cut on his forehead, and blood dyed his cheeks and neck red. Fang Yan was also in a sorry state. His clothes were torn and tattered. He looked like a freshly baked Brother Sharp when he went out. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan were afraid of getting involved, so they hid in the room and didn't dare to come out. They just peeped at the fight through the window. Fang Yan and Bailey Lu fell to the ground, panting. The blood on Bailey Lu's forehead flowed into his mouth, but he didn't intend to wipe it off. He said, "I know you were injured some time ago, and I know you're angry. I know you need to vent your anger to face the challenge of the Qinya army. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan can't do it. They're not strong enough. I'll come over and fight with you. I'll let you beat me up. Do you feel better now? You vented your anger, haven't you? We're on the same side, and it's just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. Even the Japanese dared to bully us. We can't be careless about this. Beat them until even their mothers can't recognize them. There's nothing I can do to help you. I'll give you some confidence." Bailey Lu got up from the ground and said, "I usually think you're annoying, but this time, I hope you win." Bailey Lu walked away. Bailey Lu was covered in wounds. It was hard to tell where his nose and eyes were, but he held his head high and chest out, as if he were the proudest man in the world. If he hadn't leaned forward and almost fallen when he crossed the threshold of the small courtyard, he would have been a very charming chivalrous man. Fang Yan lay on the ground and didn't get up. He looked at the stars in the sky with a happy smile on his face. His body was also covered in wounds, but at this moment, he was extremely calm. Fang Yingying called home to ask for help, but it was Yi Ro who came, which proved that his family was still very angry at him for running away. Yi Ro was seriously injured in the fight with the Chiba barracks. Fang Yan knew how powerful Yi Ro was. He had never won in so many years of competition, which could prove a lot of things. Even Yi Ro couldn't beat him. How high was the kendo cultivation of the Chiba barracks? Could he really beat him? Zhang Yuan was attacked by the arsenal. Qin Etienne's life was unknown, and he was shot and bleeding. They didn't give him any information about Qin Etienne, but they sent him a document. They wanted to kill all the people in the document by himself. Fang Yan was very tired. He was also very scared. He was afraid of losing and death. He was also afraid that he would be laughed at because he couldn't beat the Chiba barracks if he lost and died. He was such a proud man. He wanted to escape and refuse. He wanted to hug the thigh of the Chiba barracks and say, "I have a good family and will soon have children. Can we not fight?" However, he couldn't do that. He could do that to Yi Ro, to Bailey Lu, to the old drunkard, to Tang Qing, to anyone in Huaxia, but he couldn't do that to the Chiba barracks. As Bailey Lu said, if they fought among themselves, it was just a matter of not changing clothes for a few months and not getting a haircut for half a year. However, if he lost to the Chiba barracks, then the reputation of all the men in the martial world of Huaxia would be tarnished. If he escaped, then all the men in Huaxia would be disgraced. Therefore, Fang Yan wouldn't give in at all. He not only wanted to win, but he wanted to win fair and square. He was going to fight with his life. He was going to gamble with his life. However, he was also very, very angry. The Chiba barracks, you bastard, you big turtle, you old monster, why did you come to me? Why didn't you choke to death when you drank water? Why didn't you eat too much? Why didn't you walk to death? Why didn't you cut off your head when you practiced swordsmanship? Bailey Lu came at the right time and it was necessary. After this battle, he felt refreshed. Now he didn't care about his family's attitude or Qin Etienne's physical condition. No matter what, he had to complete the task given by the Qin family. There was only one thought in his mind: to defeat the Chiba barracks. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen finally came out. When they saw the big hole in the courtyard wall, both of them showed expressions of lingering fear. This made Fang Yan very regretful. Why did he give them the words heroes as their names? It was such a good word, but it had been ruined by these two cowards. Junior Martial Uncle was lying on the ground, and they didn't dare to stand. Fang Yingying was lying on the left side of Fang Yan, and Fang Haohen was lying on the right side of Fang Yan. Fang Yingying said, Bailey Lu is a good person, but his character is a little bad. Bailey Lu said that Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were not good enough because they were not strong enough. This sentence offended both Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen. They decided that they would never play with a guy like Bailey Lu, who spoke ill of others in front of others. Actually, Fang Yingxiong and I also thought of sending ourselves up to be beaten up by little Uncle Master. However, we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to appease little Uncle Master's anger after being beaten up. Heroes, heroes? Fang Yan looked at the brightest star in the sky and said, Tell me honestly, do you think I can defeat the Chiba barracks? Fang Yingying said without thinking, Of course. In my heart, Junior Martial Uncle is invincible. Not to mention the Chiba barracks, even if the father of the Chiba barracks came, he would be killed by Junior Martial Uncle with one slap. I know. You mean that I can only beat the father of the Chiba barracks, right? Fang Yan asked. You had to listen to the words of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen skillfully. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand what they meant at all. Fang Yingying touched his nose awkwardly and said, Anyway, I think Junior Martial Uncle must win. I think so too, Fang Haohen echoed. Fang Yan sighed softly and said, You don't think that I can beat the Chiba barracks. Otherwise, why would you go and use that kind of trick on him? I am your Junior Martial Uncle, so you have to stand on my side and cheer me up. Yi Ro thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so she came. Bailey Lu also thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so he came. My parents, Grandpa, and the old drunkard all think that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, so they didn't say anything. Everyone thinks that I can't beat the Chiba barracks, but no one stopped me from fighting him. They don't want me to die, but they can only watch me die. To be honest, I'm not angry at all. If the Chiba barracks challenged Yi Ro wouldn't have backed down. If he challenged Bailey Lu wouldn't have backed down. As long as he challenges the warriors of Huaxia, no one will back down. Martial arts are in the East, and the martial soul is in Huaxia. This is not stupidity, but pride from the depths of our bones. Yes, we are so proud. Even if they were to die in battle, they would not show any signs of retreat or fear towards them. These things should only be shown on them. Fang Ying, Fang Haohen, if I die, don't be sad for me, Fang Yan said softly, his face shining. Because I will die with pride. Fang Yingying's eyes were wet, and he said in a choked voice, I know, I won't be sad, I will be proud of Junior Martial Uncle. Fang Haohen's face was full of tears, and his hands tightly grasped the grass on the ground, turning the fresh grass into grass pulp with a fragrant smell, and said, Junior Martial Uncle, you are my and Hero's idol, in the past, in the future, and always. Fang Yan nodded with satisfaction and said, That's it. Practice hard and help me take care of my parents. Don't think about challenging the Chiba barracks to avenge me. If you have the chance, kill his son, Chiba Barracks? Chapter 250. Death is like a lamp going out. This saying is wrong. A lamp could be lit again if it was extinguished, but if a person died and was lit, they would become a jar of bone ash. Therefore, Fang Yen cherished his life very much. Whoever wanted him dead, he would make them die a horrible death. Since there was no way out, then he would move forward with a fearless attitude. Fang Yen knew that if he died, he would definitely die. Yi Gentle would immediately challenge the Chiba military, then Bailey Lu, or Madman Bai from the Bai family, Ho Zhendong, or anyone else. It would be fine if the Chiba military lost, but if they won, they wouldn't be able to return to Japan alive. Although he was unlucky, the fate of the Chiba military division was even more miserable. After understanding this, Fang Yen became happy again. With the knot in his heart resolved, Fang Yen became the normal Fang Yen again. Fang Yen was knowledgeable, witty, and incisive. Plus, he knew how to motivate his students. In his class, there was endless laughter and cheerful chatter. All of the students liked Fang Yen's classes. Even the language teachers who attended his classes a few times had to admit that Fang Yen was indeed a very good teacher. Fang Yen tried not to look at the back row of the classroom because there was an empty seat there that was very eye-catching. The weather was getting colder and colder, and the students had all changed into winter clothes. In another 2 months, it would be winter vacation, and Fang Yen was about to end his first semester of classes. When the bell rang, the students went out to exercise. After taking a sip of tea, Fang Yen walked to the back of the classroom and sat down beside Chiba Kaori. Chiba Kaori had a sweet appearance and a gentle personality. She wore the custom-made rosefinch uniform, which was very lethal. Although Chiba Kaori had not been here for long, she was rather popular in school. Some people said that she was the second most beautiful girl in Rosefinch High School. Except for Qin Etienne, no one was more beautiful than her. Some people thought that she was even prettier than Qin Etienne, because Qin Etienne's aura was so strong that they didn't dare to approach him. However, Chiba Kaori was more like an ordinary person. At the very least, they wouldn't feel pressured or nervous when talking to her, and they even dared to joke around with her. Who would dare to joke around with Qin Etienne? Fang Yen took Chiba Kaori's beautifully packaged Chinese textbook and asked, "Is there anything you don't understand?" "There are many things I don't understand." Chiba Kaori shook her head. The main problem was the language barrier and the cultural differences between countries. Of course, after I understood the meaning of that paragraph, all the problems would be easily solved. It'll just take a little more time. Because you came from Japan, you have to learn more things and put in more effort. Fang Yen said in a calm and gentle voice, like a teacher discussing learning problems with his students. Of course, that was the truth. I know that your real hobby is the tea ceremony, and you put most of your energy into it. This isn't a bad thing. On the contrary, I hope that there will be more students like you in our class. Only when you love something to the bone will you be willing to sacrifice your most precious time and unfathomable sincerity for it. Only then can you become the most outstanding talent in this field. Become the king. If you just want to improve your tea ceremony skills, you only need to learn from Qin Etienne or other tea ceremony experts. You don't need to waste time learning Chinese, mathematics, and Huaxia's politics and history that you're not interested in at all. I've seen your papers, and I can tell from your handwriting that you hate them. But you did it. You don't just want to learn the tea ceremony, you also want to solve a question in your heart. What kind of Huaxia's culture can give birth to a talent like Qin Etienne? Yes. Chiba Kaori didn't deny it. Teacher, I have to go back to Japan eventually. When I return, I will become a tea ceremony master and a teacher. I will explain to them the long history of Huaxia's tea ceremony culture, as well as historical allusions that I'm not interested in, and what we should learn and comprehend from them. Not only do I want to improve their skills, but I also need to enrich their brains. I'll never forget the scene when I had a tea competition with Qin Etienne. She came over in a domineering manner and gave me her rootless water without hesitation. She wasn't afraid of losing to me, and she never thought about losing to me. I was stuck in a dead end and couldn't get out. I always thought that her tea ceremony cultivation was higher than mine, and her skills were better than mine. Later, I realized that she was more confident than me. That kind of confidence came from her beautiful appearance, from her noble temperament and huge aura, and even more so from her knowledge and cultivation. This was truly invincible. She's been nurtured by 5,000 years of culture. How can I defeat such an opponent? Fang Yan's eyes lit up. He knocked on the table with his finger and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Chiba Kori." "Thank you," Chiba Kori said with a smile. "Mr. Fang, you're a proud person. You're not afraid that I'll take away your knowledge and culture. Every expression and every action of yours is telling me we're no match for you. It's infuriating and exasperating." "Chiba Kori, you don't understand. We have 5,000 years of cultural accumulation. We have fertile land that extends as far as the eye can see. We have 3 billion people with great talents. I'm just a small pearl among them, but we have many more seeds that people are looking forward to. They're taking root, sprouting, and will soon grow into towering trees. You can take away my knowledge, but you can't take away all of Huaxia's knowledge. You can take away the culture that you can see with your naked eyes, but you can't take away the culture that flows in our bones and blood." Fang Yan said proudly. "This is Huaxia's soul. As long as this soul exists, Huaxia will always be able to stand among the world's most powerful countries. We're not afraid of the wind, the rain, or the storm. As long as we're given a bit of soil and a bit of opportunity, we can take root and sprout into the most beautiful flower. Look around you. Look at your feet. Isn't that the truth?" Chiba Kori's expression dimmed, but she quickly regained her composure. She looked at Fang Yan with a burning gaze and asked, "Mr. Fang, you just said that only when you love something in your bones can you disregard everything for it? Do you love martial arts?" "Yes," Fang Yan said with absolute certainty. "For a long time I hated it. I even wanted to abandon it and distance myself from it. However, because I'm a woman, I had no choice but to approach it and understand it. However, recently I suddenly understood that I love it. I love it beyond redemption. It's because I care too much that I have higher expectations of myself. Rather than others being disappointed in me, it's more like I'm disappointed in myself. Since the moment I was born, it's been a part of my body. This is my destiny and also my luck." Bush, bush, bush. Chiba Haomu was still practicing his sword thrusts. Day after day, month after month. It started at sunrise and ended at moonset. If it were any other child, they would have gotten tired of the monotonous movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. If it were any other parent, they would have gotten tired of the movements, but Chiba Haomu didn't. He stood behind Chiba Haomu and saw every single sword strike that Chiba Haomu made. "Part of my body? It's destiny and luck," Chiba Haomu mumbled to himself. His silhouette was infinitely elongated under the moonlight. "Father, I think Mr. Fang has changed a lot," Chiba Kori said. "Some time ago he was very depressed. Although he still taught us as usual, we couldn't laugh at what he said. He couldn't laugh either. He was like a weirdo with a mountain on his back. Every step he took was very difficult. Now we're laughing again in his class and he's laughing as well. He gives off the feeling that he's in high spirits. When he walks, it's like he's floating." "He's not afraid anymore," Chiba Haomu said. "Has he ever been afraid?" "Yes," Chiba Haomu said. "He's afraid of losing, afraid of dying, afraid of losing face, losing his own face, and losing the face of his peers. Everyone is afraid, including me." "How could father lose?" Chiba Kori asked in surprise. Because she was too shocked and didn't lower her voice when she spoke, even Chiba Haomu, who was focused on his sword practice, was attracted by their conversation. Chiba Haomu stopped practicing and walked to his father, Chiba Haomu, and said, "Father will never lose. Because I've never lost before." "Never?" Chiba Haomu smiled and shook his head. "No one is born to be invincible. I've lost before, and I've lost more than others. It's just that you don't know. But I won't lose to Fang Yan," Chiba Haomu said stubbornly. He had a deep hatred for Fang Yan, and he had always wanted to take revenge. If the invincible god of war in his heart lost, it would greatly affect his confidence. Chiba Haomu looked at his children and his disciple, who was hidden in the darkness, and said, "Previously, I had a 70% chance of winning this match. Now, I only have 60% left. I'm very happy that he finally cast aside his fear and became my true opponent." "Father." Chiba Koori was stunned. "Did he ask me to bring these words to you on purpose? Did he do this to affect your state of mind?" "Yes." Chiba Haomu nodded. "He asked you to say to me, 'Come, I'm ready.'" Chiba Haomu turned and walked into the house. Chiba Haomu asked, "Father, where are you going?" "Cleaning my sword," Chiba Haomu said. Chapter 251. Without a 100% victory, if Fang Yan wasn't on guard, Fang Yingying could knock him down and make him kneel. Confidence, martial arts, physical condition, environmental impact, desire for victory, and even changes in the weather could all affect the outcome of a match. Since ancient times, there had been many examples of big shots being played to death by small shots. Fang Yan knew that Chiba Kir would bring his words to the Chiba army, and he also knew that the Chiba army would pay more attention to him and this battle. Fang Yan wouldn't mind doing something like throwing a stone into his ethereal state of mind 100 or 200 times. Chaoyan technology had been officially established, and Lu Chaoga was recruiting people everywhere, ready to put the new company on the right track as soon as possible. She had been engaged in the education industry abroad for many years, and after returning to China, she took over as the executive vice principal of Rosefinch High School. She could handle so many students and complicated human relations, so Fang Yan wasn't worried that she wouldn't be able to manage a company well. Fang Yan rarely got involved in Chaoyan Technologies matters, and he didn't even take a look at the company's opening. Although he held valuable shares in Chaoyan Technology, if he was willing to sell them now, the money he could get would be enough for him to live a carefree life. Of course, Fang Yan's shares couldn't be sold for the time being. Moreover, even if he sold them in the future, he could only sell them to Lu Chaoga or the Tianfang biological group controlled by the Qin family. Chaoyan Technology, which had the Rubik's Cube technology, couldn't let too many people in, and they couldn't let unfamiliar people in. Otherwise, there would be a thrilling office struggle. Lu Chaoga had just brought the Rubik's Cube out from Longtu Group, and it was impossible for her new company to become a new battlefield. However, there were some things that Fang Yan couldn't ignore. It was Fang Yan's first time coming to Chaoyan Technology. According to the address Lu Chaoga provided, he found this not very beautiful but heavily guarded compound. The large stone at the entrance was engraved with the words, Chaoyan Technology, in gold. Other than that, there was no sign. The big stone was also covered by branches, and the whole company looked very low-key. After registering and verifying his ID at the security booth, Fang Yan was led by a middle-aged woman to a small building in the courtyard. There were many guards in the small building. Not only were there many black-robed men patrolling around, but there were also countless cameras in the open and in the dark. Fang Yan sighed softly. It was quite stressful to work in such an environment. However, he also knew that the Rubik's Cube technology was of great importance. Everyone wanted it. If they couldn't do it in the open, they would snatch it in the dark. For the benefits that would make people jealous, they would do anything. He took the elevator to the 5th floor of the small building. Lu Chaoga was waiting in the office. The middle-aged woman left quietly, closing the door behind her. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "Follow me." She turned a globe on the desk, and the bookcase behind the desk immediately opened to both sides. An iron door appeared in front of Fang Yan. Lu Chaoga opened the iron door and went in first. Fang Yan also stood in. There was a row of Arabic numerals on the wall, but Lu Chaoga pressed the letter P at the top. So, the bookcase closed automatically, the iron door closed in the middle, and the elevator began to slowly descend. Seeing Fang Yan's puzzled eyes, Lu Chaoga explained, "Those Arabic numerals are all traps. Whether you press 1 or 9, they will automatically alarm. Only P can reach the research room." "What is this place?" Fang Yan asked. The setup was a bit old and didn't seem to be new. In such a short time, It was difficult for Lu Chaoge to build such an extremely safe research room. This yard originally belonged to Huaqing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics. They built such a research room next to the school to study the latest aircraft parts. Later, when the University of Aeronautics and Astronautics moved, they had a more advanced and more hidden laboratory, so they were ready to sell this property. I communicated with them and used the money to buy this courtyard. Is it safe? Fang Yan asked worriedly. If he were to use something that had been used by others, it would be easy for his secrets to be leaked. I've changed all their previous designs, Lu Xiaoge said. These are all newly added by me. They needed to enter from the underground entrance, and I sealed the entrance with alloy. No one could open it. Not even myself. What about this elevator? The elevator was original. Only the previous director knew about it. I couldn't bear to remove the setup of the elevator, so I installed the most advanced scent detector from Tianfang Biological Group. Scent detector? Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoge with a puzzled expression. Everyone's body emits a unique scent. This scent is difficult to imitate and impossible to decipher. Moreover, the composition of this scent is quite complicated. The scent emitted when happy is different from when angry. Even if they kidnapped me, it would be useless. The computer recorded the scent on my body. Only when the scent was suitable would it send me to the place I wanted to go. If the scent wasn't right, then it would send you to a death row. The most important thing is that very few people know about the existence of this thing, Fang Yan said. Lu Chaoge nodded. Everyone will look for the location of the cameras and other secret devices. They have no idea that when the air conditioner is turned on, the scent on a person's body will be extracted and sent to be analyzed. Clang. As the two spoke, the elevator sent them to the mysterious underground. Fang Yan walked over and opened the iron gate. Lu Chaoge took the lead and led the way to a silver gate. His eyes swept over the electronic lock on the silver gate, and the silver gate immediately split into two crescent buds that opened to both sides. Only then did an advanced and busy underground research room appear in front of Fang Yan. More than a dozen researchers in white coats were sitting in front of computers, typing furiously on the keyboard. There were also some researchers walking around with thick folders in their arms. They seemed to be in a hurry and looked very busy. Lu Chaoge led Fang Yan straight inside. She didn't greet any staff along the way. She pushed open an office door and walked in. Fang Yan followed her into the room and closed the door behind him. There were already a few people in the room, including a dead man. Dean Lu. A bald man wearing glasses took the initiative to greet Lu Chaoge, but his eyes were staring at Fang Yan warily. He is our collaborator, Lu Chaoge said. Zhao Xiqing's eyes flashed with surprise and he nodded to Fang Yan in a friendly manner. Zhao Xiqing, Deputy Dean of the Research Institute. Lu Chaoge introduced Zhao Xiqing to Fang Yan. Fang Yan shook hands with Zhao Xiqing and looked at the dead man in a white coat lying on his office chair as if he was fast asleep. He asked, "What's going on?" "He's dead," Zhao Xiqing said. "How did he die?" "I don't know." Zhao Xiqing shook his head. "When we found him this morning, he was already dead. At first, we thought he was under too much pressure from work or some other physical illness." "What about now?" Zhao Xiqing pointed to his chest and said, "We found that. It was a flower, a red flower. This flower looked very strange. It was shaped like a woman's sexy and seductive lips." "Lip flower," Fang Yan whispered. "Why is there a lip flower here?" Fang Yan had seen the introduction of the lip flower in the book Flora. He knew that it mainly grew in the tropical rainforests of some countries in Central and South America. For example, Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama, and so on. How did it end up in Huaxia now? "Someone put it in his coat pocket," Lu Chaoge said. "They deliberately let us know that they killed him. They have the ability to do so." Fang Yan's face also became embarrassed. He had just walked through it once. He knew how strict the security in the courtyard of Chaoyan Technology was. It could be said that it was as difficult as ascending to heaven for outsiders to get here. However, in the deepest part of the research room, someone could come and go freely. After killing someone, they even put a small flower in his arms as a keepsake. This was a blatant threat. Lu Chaoga looked sadly at the man lying on the chair and said, "His name is Hu Jia. He is an engineer I invited from the new Academy of Sciences. He is mainly responsible for the application of Rubik's Cube technology in daily life. Because Hu Jia just came, I dare not give him the core technology of Rubik's Cube. So he is dead. Where did he come from?" Fang Yan asked. "I don't know." Lu Chaoga shook her head. "Before you came, I went to the computer room to look at all the surveillance videos. I didn't find any suspicious people coming in. Is this person a ghost? So many surveillance cameras can't capture his figure?" Zhao Siqing scolded angrily. "Dean Lu, this matter must be resolved as soon as possible. We can't hide it for too long. If other staff members find out, it will cause panic in the research room. At that time, no one will have the mood to stay and work." Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yan and said, "I am going to call the police after you see it. Although I know there is no point in doing so. But after all, someone died in here. Calling the police is not the first choice," Fang Yan said. "If the police come, the defense here will lose its meaning. The first thing we need to do now is to find the person who sent the flowers." "But," Zhao Siqing asked eagerly. "I don't believe he is a ghost," Fang Yan said. "Since all the cameras can't capture his figure, maybe he is still hiding in this research room and hasn't left." Everyone in the room sucked in a breath of cold air. The killer was still among them? He could cut off their heads at any time. Chapter 252. Are you sure? Lu Chaoga's face was also full of worry. Her company had just opened for business, but a murderer with a ghostly figure had sneaked in. How were they going to work properly? If news of this got out, all the busy staff in white coats outside would probably run away, wouldn't they? Smart people were afraid of death, and the people outside were all first-class smart people. Is he really still in the research institute? Seeing the fear in everyone's eyes, Fang Yan smiled and comforted them, saying, "I don't know much, and it's just a little suspicion. Maybe he's long gone. It would be better if he stayed in the research institute." Lu Chaoga had already recovered her calm and sharp state, and said, "If he's still in the research institute, then we'll keep him here forever. If he comes and runs away, then he'll be a big problem for us." What the director said makes sense. Zhao Siqing nodded in agreement. Today they can kill Hu Jia, tomorrow they can sneak in and kill another Hu Jia. Every one of our engineers is a treasure, and losing one makes our heart bleed. What's worse is that we can't immediately recruit new people to replace Hu Jia's position. Engineers are not masons who can bring back a small group of people just by walking around the market. If we can get rid of him internally, it'll be a good thing. Fang Yan looked at Zhao Siqing in surprise. This gentle guy actually had a hidden murderous intent in his chest. Zhao Siqing grinned coldly and said, "Which new technology isn't coveted by countless people? Domestic and foreign, family and outsiders. I've seen these kinds of dirty things in the past." Fang Yan was too lazy to ask about Zhao Siqing's background. He just looked at Lu Chaoga and said, "How many people are in here?" 21 researchers, 47 assistants, 69 security personnel. Lu Chaoga was very attentive to the research institute, and she was responsible for all the staff recruitment. Except for a group of people sent by the Qin family to fill out the team, the others were all recruited by her, so she was very familiar with the data. Should we find an excuse to call them in for a chat? Mr. Fang is also watching from the side. If we find a suspicious person, we'll take him down immediately? Zhao Siqing asked. No. Fang Yan rejected the suggestion. Don't mess around. We mustn't fall into chaos here. The more chaotic it was, the more opportunities it would give him, an opportunity to do evil, and also an opportunity to escape. Let's just maintain the status quo. Everyone is at their own job, and there will be people who do not fit in with the environment automatically appear in front of us. Lu Chaoga trusted Fang Yan very much. She said, "I'll give you the control of this place." He then pointed to a dark-faced, skinny man standing behind Fang Yan and said, "He is Qi Ning, the person in charge of security here." Qi Ning. Fang Yan's gaze turned cold as he looked at Qin Ying and asked, "You're from the Qin clan?" "I used to be a member of Tianfang Biological Group, and now I'm a member of Chaoyan Research Institute," Qin Ying said with an indifferent expression. This kid didn't want to expose too much, and Fang Yan wouldn't force him. Plus, not everyone in the Qin family would know if Qin Etian was injured or how badly injured she was. That was something that could be kept a secret. Fang Yan looked at Hu Jia, who was lying on the chair, and said, "Let him lie here for the time being. Don't touch his body. Before the autopsy is carried out, no one knows if there's anything strange about the body. Hu Jia's matter will be kept a secret for the time being. All of you should return to your posts. Don't let them find anything unusual." Fang Yan took the lead to open the door and said, "Qin Ying, tell me about the Research Institute's protection measures." Qin Ying turned to look at Lu Chaoga. In this courtyard, he only listened to Lu Chaoga's orders. "Cooperate fully," Lu Chaoga said. Thus, Lu Chaoga returned to her office. The secretary made her favorite Longjing tea as usual. The head of the logistics department came to her office to report on work, and the two talked for a long time. When Zhao Xiqing went out, his face and neck were red. Those who knew him knew that he had quarreled with Hu Jia again. Hu Jia was the main person in charge of the Rubik's Cube technology research, and the two of them often quarreled because of different research directions. Everyone had long been used to it. It wasn't known if he was curious or worried about Fang Yan, but after Zhao Xiqing went out, he didn't return to his research room. Instead, he walked around the team of engineers outside, constantly going to some research stations to ask something, but his eyes would inadvertently drift in the direction of Fang Yan. Everyone else also returned to their respective positions. Hu Jia's office door was closed, and Qin Ying even deliberately added a lock when he came out. He was afraid that someone would go in to report to Hu Jia and find that he was dead. Qin Ying was indeed a member of the Qin family, and a relatively core member of the Qin family. Qin Etian made a phone call back, and then Lu Chaoga rushed to Huaqing Airport with the research materials of the Rubik's Cube technology. She took a private plane that was already parked there and flew to Yanjing. The person who brought the private plane to Huaqing to welcome Lu Chaoga was Qin Ying. The mistress of the family personally met with Lu Chaoga, and the two didn't negotiate for a long time. Then, Qin Ying was ordered to send Lu Chaoga back to Huaqing, and then led his people to take charge of the security of the Chaoyan Research Institute. One had to know that Qin Ying used to be the security consultant of the Qin family. He was mainly responsible for the safety of the family head and mistress when they went out, greeting important businessmen, and protecting visiting politicians. Of course, he wasn't the only person in charge. There were also a few old monsters who were inseparable from the family head and mistress. Later, when Miss Qin Etian came to Huaqing to study, an old monster followed her to Huaqing. When Qin Ying first came over, he was still a little nervous, thinking that he had made some mistake and was kicked away by the mistress. Later, when he saw a large number of engineers and researchers sent by Tianfang Biological Group, which belonged to the Qin family, Qin Ying knew the true purpose of the mistress sending him over. This place was very important, and no mistakes were allowed. Therefore, Qin Ying put in a lot of effort to arrange this courtyard into an impenetrable defense. However, something still happened to Chaoyan technology, and it was the Chaoyan Research Institute, which was the core of the underground. This was a huge blow to Qin Ying. Were the assassins outside already so powerful? Only Dean Lu has the chance to come down from the elevator in the office. Everyone else has to go through that door, Qin Ying said, pointing to a closed silver passageway. However, it's impossible for outsiders to get in. To pass through that door, you have to go through many checkpoints. Not only are there advanced equipment checks, but there are also manual checks. Most of my brothers are also stationed there. They are all veterans, and it's impossible for them to make such a big mistake. No one doesn't make mistakes, Fang Yan said with a smile. Some people do it intentionally, and some do it unintentionally. I don't doubt your professionalism. After walking into the courtyard of Chaoyan Technology, I felt a lot of pressure. However, our eyes have blind spots, and our brains also have blind spots. What we have to do now is to find those blind spots and fill in those loopholes. Qin Ying looked at Fang Yan with puzzled eyes and said, Who are you? Fang Yan grinned and said, curious about me now? I asked you if you were a member of the Qin family just now, and you didn't seem to want to reveal your identity. There were too many people in the room just now, and the Qin family is more low-key. The Qin family is more low-key? Fang Yan thought of the scene when Qin Etienne appeared in the tea house in a Rolls-Royce Phantom with the old housekeeper. He really couldn't agree with what Qin Ying said, although his expression was so serious. I am Qin Etienne's teacher, Fang Yan said. Qin Ying's eyes became more playful as he said, what you said is not what a teacher should know. Teachers will not teach such knowledge to students. My teacher is a bit special, Fang Yan said. From Qin Ying's reaction, it could be seen that he did not know the relationship between him and Qin Etienne. It seemed that the Qin family was still persistent in keeping this matter under wraps. This discovery made Fang Yan happy and disappointed. He was happy that the Qin family thought that he and Qin Etienne were just playing a game. He was disappointed that the Qin family did not put him in their eyes. Fang Yan walked very slowly. His ears were listening to Qin Ying's introduction of the entire research institute's protective measures, but his eyes were scanning everyone he passed. He had a hunch that he was among these people. A white-haired engineer was recording something on a computer. His typing speed was very fast. It seemed that he had made a new discovery and was now very excited. A balding engineer was lying weakly on a chair. His eyes were lifeless, and one of his hands was grabbing the few strands of hair on his head. A female researcher wearing a white coat was standing in front of a container that was constantly heating up. She kept recording the rapidly rising red numbers on the container cup. Everyone was busy, and everyone was focused on doing their own things. No one looked at Fang Yan. Many people did not even notice that Fang Yan was standing behind them. Fang Yan walked around and returned to the female researcher who was standing in front of the container recording numbers. Looking at her focused expression, he asked, "Do you think I am handsome?" The female researcher raised her head and glanced at Fang Yan. The pen in her hand was still recording quickly. She said with a displeased expression, "Get lost. You haven't answered my question yet. Do you think I am handsome?" Fang Yan did not get lost. Instead, he continued to ask this ridiculous question that made Qin Ying want to cover his face and run away. Chapter 253. Do you think I'm handsome? This was a question that made one's teeth ache and one's legs tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that when Fang Yan asked this question, his body happened to block the only exit of the research room, Qin Ying would have suspected that this guy wasn't here to find an assassin, but to pick up a girl. This woman wasn't gorgeous, but her facial features were distinct, and she had the demeanor of a European and American chick. Moreover, she was tall and wore a loose white coat. She did look somewhat charming. A serious female engineer. Such a woman was rare outside. Qin Ying was also an expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to become the head of security here. Experts all had their unique sixth sense, and Qin Ying's sixth sense told him that there was something wrong with this woman. This was because there was something wrong with Fang Yan's attitude towards this woman. Even though he still couldn't figure out what exactly was wrong with this woman. He made a gesture behind him, and immediately, a few strong young men in black suits came from all directions and surrounded them. It was very subtle, and even the other staff members didn't notice their movements. The woman was completely infuriated by Fang Yan. She closed the folder in her hand and stared at Fang Yan's face in dissatisfaction. She said, "You're not handsome at all. Pig head and dog face, bear's back and snake's heart, wretched voice, shameless smile. I've never seen a man more disgusting than you. Now you know the answer, right? Get lost, don't disturb me while I'm doing my experiment." Hearing such a horrible evaluation, Fang Yan wasn't angry at all. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, why do you always sneak a peek at me? When did I sneak a peek at you?" The woman was about to explode from anger at Fang Yan. She pointed at Fang Yan and said, "I've been doing boiling experiments all this time. I didn't even notice whether you're a human or a dog. I'm not in the mood and I don't have the time to joke with you. Get lost, or I'll complain to the director." What right do you, bodyguards, have to interrupt our work? Do you know how much damage you've caused to the Institute by disrupting my train of thought? Qin Ying stood beside Fang Yen. Although he was helping Fang Yen block off all possible escape routes for the woman, he said to Fang Yen, "The Institute has a rule that no one is allowed to disturb the work of researchers without reason." This kid was also a slippery fellow. Before things were clear, he was not willing to bear any responsibility. Now that he had reminded Fang Yen that there was such a rule in the Research Institute, it was up to Fang Yen to decide how things would develop in the future. Of course, since it was Fang Yan's decision, Fang Yen naturally had to bear the consequences. Fang Yen pointed to the glass container and said, "The container can reflect light. Although your gaze was fixed on the container and you were constantly recording the boiling index on it, I could still feel that you were secretly sizing me up. Of course, at that time, I was only suspicious, but I couldn't be sure that you were definitely looking at me. When I left your research room and walked outside, you raised your head and looked at me." Fang Yen pointed to the glass wall opposite the research room and said, "Don't lie. I clearly saw you sizing me up in that mirror." Fang Yen stared at the woman and said, "Since you said that I'm not good-looking, then give me a reason why you peeped at me? I thought that you were very ugly, so I looked at you a few more times. If I were walking on the street and saw a clown wearing silk stockings or a puppy wearing a red vest, I wouldn't be able to help but look at you a few more times. Is this reason enough?" The woman said with a face full of sarcasm. "I walked through the entire underground research institute, walked past every staff member, and found a problem. Do you want to know?" "What?" the woman asked curiously. "You used perfume," Fang Yen said. "In the entire underground research institute, only you used perfume. Isn't that strange? People like you who are in the field of bioengineering should be very resistant to foreign smells. The lip flower is too fragrant, so you need to use perfume to cover its original smell. Is that right? In your opinion, engineers should be sloppy, not bathing for 3 to 5 days, and not getting a haircut for a year and a half. Is that right? You became suspicious because you saw a slightly more normal engineer? I used perfume because I don't like potions. Although I'm an engineer, I really don't like to deal with these strange and unpleasant potions all day long. I don't like my job. Is that a crime? I don't know which criminal law I've broken. I really don't understand. How can a woman who buries herself in research all day have such a sharp tongue? Is it natural?" Fang Yen said with a smile. "Or you? I don't know what you're talking about," the woman said. "My Chinese name is Luo Lin Na, English name is Jane. Many people here know me. You can also ask Director Lu Chaoga who recruited me or my supervisor, Zhao Xiqing. The institute still has my file. Have I made myself clear enough?" Fang Yen looked at Qin Ying, who nodded and said, "She's not lying. There aren't many female engineers in the institute. We see her going to work every day." This made Fang Yen feel a little strange. If an engineer was recruited through the proper channels, how could she become the lip flower killer? Could it be that when Lu Chaoga was recruiting, she had already found a chance to sneak in? Engineer killer? This kind of profession was rare. The other party was really willing to pay the price. Fang Yen waved his hand, no longer thinking about this question. As long as he caught the person, he would be able to get the answer from her mouth. "Let's talk," Fang Yen said with a smile. "To prove your innocence." Luo Lin Na stared at the boiling test tube and said, "As you can see, I'm in the middle of an experiment. I don't have time to talk to you." Fang Yen looked at the rising red number on the test tube and said, "Unfortunately, it's not up to you." As he spoke, he reached out to grab Luo Lin Na. As long as he had this woman in his hands, he didn't believe that she could play any tricks. At this moment, danger struck. Yes, Fang Yen smelled danger. When he saw Luo Lin Na's eyes turn cruel, he understood that this woman must have a backup plan. "Dodge!" Fang Yen shouted. Qin Ying saw Fang Yen rush out at an extremely fast speed and retreat at an even faster speed, and knew that things were not good, so he followed behind Fang Yen and ran out of the research room. Bang! With a dull sound, the red liquid in the test tube boiled to the extreme, and the test tube could not bear the burden and exploded. Not only did the test tube explode, but the entire glass research room that the woman was in also collapsed. The attack power of the liquid bomb was too strong. The red liquid in the test tube had a strong corrosive effect, and wherever it fell, it would corrode and burn, emitting white smoke. If Fang Yen and Qin Ying's reactions were any slower, they would have been burned into a foul smell. Bang! The sound of an explosion came from Hu Jia's office not far away, and the glass of Hu Jia's door and window was smashed by the strong airflow, flying towards the crowd outside the office. The crowd was in chaos, and everyone screamed and fled in all directions. Fang Yen pushed Qin Ying, who was on his back, away, and began to search for Luo Lin Na. This lip-smacking killer named Luo Lin Na was extremely dangerous, and her scheming and skills were top-notch. Under Fang Yan's various tests, she did not reveal any flaws, and kept stalling for time until the liquid bomb in the test tube exploded. Only then did she reveal her true colors. If it wasn't for that heart-palpitating gaze, she would probably be able to do even more things, right? Where did they find such talents who knew biology and could kill without batting an eye? The crowd was in chaos, and the entire underground research room was in a mess. White smoke billowed in the glass research room, and Hu Jia's office was actually on fire. Obviously, this woman was an expert in weapons. She caused 2 explosions under Fang Yan's nose at the same time, and he had to admit that she was a strange woman. "Protect the director," Fang Yan shouted. Qin Ying did not hesitate, and made a gesture, and a group of men in black rushed towards the office where Lu Chaoge was. Fang Yan stood still, and his eyes were like the eyes of an eagle, searching the crowd. From where he stood, he could see a group of people in white coats running towards the emergency exit. Damn uniform, it made it more difficult for him to find Luo Lin Na in the crowd. The emergency exit was tightly sealed, and the engineers ran to the door, but found that there was no way to run out of the office. One by one, they shouted, and some ran towards the director and deputy director's office, trying to force them to open the door. Lu Chaoge and Zhao Siqing were smart, and no matter how noisy it was outside, they closed the door and did not come out. As long as they did not take the initiative to come out, it would not be easy for the people outside to get out. Smart people are afraid of death, Fang Yan thought. These smart people were indeed more afraid of death than ordinary people. Suddenly, Fang Yan's eyes became fierce. He smashed the glass wall in front of him, grabbed a piece of glass, and threw it at the white figure who was sneaking close to the corner of the wall. At the same time, his body had already jumped high, like a cheetah jumping from one workbench to another. The glass was like a ray of lightning, arriving in an instant. Just as the white figure was about to turn to another corner, the sharp glass cut fiercely stabbed into the back of the white figure. Fang Yan, who was running in the air, could clearly see blood flowing down the smooth glass into the air. Fang Yan's speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed behind the white figure and punched the back of the person in white. Bang! The body of the person in white flew up and slammed into the wall in front of her. As she flew in the air, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood rained down, and it was unknown whether the sharp tip of the glass had pierced her internal organs, or if Fang Yan's punch had ruptured and displaced her internal organs. Crack! The body of the person in white slammed into the wall, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly. Her body slid down the snow-white wall, and a dark red blood groove was left on the silver-white alloy cover. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.